Hello friends, welcome to Universe of Naruto X. If you love Naruto what if stories and anime explanations, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Now let's begin today's story. Things just had not been going his way for the longest time now, and it was incredibly depressing. The blonde teen didn't have any friends, nor did he really have any loved ones of any kind. He learned why a short while ago when one of his teachers at the academy tried to frame him for stealing the scroll of seals. Why was this boy hated? He is what is known as a genturi or power of human sacrifice. There were 9 genturi in total, each of them housing a beast of unimaginable power called a Jew. The more tails a Jew had, the more powerful it was. Which did Naruto hold? Why, the most powerful of them all, the Kaiba no Yoko. However, this didn't really matter to him at the moment. Na realized that if the old man had lied to him about not knowing why he was hated, then he was probably lying about not knowing who his parents were too. Who was this old man? Why, none other than the third Hokage of Konagak, often revered as the god of shinobi, the professor sensei of the 3 legendary sun. This man's name was Hirozen Serutoi. And at the moment, Naruto didn't trust the man. Sure, Na was now a genin of the village, but that didn't exactly change anything. He was still hated. He was still lonely. And if he was being honest with himself, he still wanted to die. Na was tired of living and only wanted to be free from it all. Either that or he would love to have at least one friend. Reaching his home, he stopped for a time and looked up at the starry sky. When he saw a shooting star, his eyes widened and he remembered an old folktale of sorts about wishing upon a shooting star. So, keeping his eyes on the sky, he spoke his wish aloud. Please hear my wish. Oh, shooting star, I want friends. I want to feel loved. I just want to know someone cares. Please give me some friends. When nothing happened, he shrugged and proceeded into his apartment. He was exhausted. He was frustrated. And he just wanted to curl up and die, even though he knew that was damn near impossible at the moment. Mushroom Kingdom. A beautiful blonde woman with blue eyes stood staring up at the night sky. This woman had 2 horns on either side of her head, both pointed upwards. She had a rather feral appearance with a fanged grin, though not nearly to the extent of a dear friend of hers. On her back, she had a spiked turtle shell, though whether this was a decoration or an actual part of her was unk. Noun. She also had a reptilian tail protruding from her backside. For clothes, this woman wore a deep black dress that covered her form. It was obvious she didn't wear a bra as her shoulders were bare and the dress only covered the bottom half of her, leaving a lot of cleavage visible for anyone T might want to sneak a peek. The final piece to note was the small crown atop her head. This woman was known as Bowsette, and she was incredibly lonely. She was oftentimes misunderstood, and these misunderstandings ruined any real chance she had at friendship. It didn't help that the troops under her command tended to cause chaos no matter where they went. Sure, they weren't mean or anything, and they didn't mean to upset her, but the fact of the matter was that they caused more harm than good. Thinking on her 2 best friends, Bu and Champet, she smiled slightly and mumbled, I promise we'll find somewhere we can be happy, you too. It was at this point that Bowette saw a star go shooting across the sky. Deciding to test the old rumor about shooting stars, she made a wish. Oh, shooting star, I wish for my friends and I to be with our destined one. I wish for us to be whisked away to wherever it is he resides. Please bring an end to our loneliness. At first, nothing happened. Sighing sadly, she turned and took a few steps towards her bed, only to stop when she felt something strange happening to her. Looking herself over, she saw that she was literally starting to disappear. Oh crap, what the hell did I just do? Within moments, Bowsette was gone from her world. Whether she would someday return or not would be left up to the power of the stars. The next morning, Kanahagaka. When Naruto woke up, he was expecting to suffer through the same crap he always did. Looks of contempt, nasty comments made by one person to another, all about him. The potential abuse he'd suffer. It was frustrating just to think about it. However, when he attempted to sit up, he found that he was pinned to the bed by a strange weight. Looking down, he saw 3 incredibly beautiful women clinging to him, each of them unconscious at the moment. At first, he started to freak out. Then he remembered the wish he made upon the star last night. Gently shaking him awake, he looked into their eyes one by one before asking, Are you my new friends? You know, the ones I wished to meet last night. The blonde woman groaned as she slowly came to. Looking into the eyes of the teenager before her, she blinked a couple of times in shock. When his question registered in her brain, her eyes widened and she asked, "You wished upon a star, too?" "Too? You mean you wished on a star, too?" Naro asked, wide-eyed at the sudden revelation. Bowette blushed a bit and nodded her head. "Yes. I asked for the shooting star to cure our loneliness. I wished for us to be whisked away so we could be with our destined one. In other words, our future husband." Na blinked a couple of times in shock before suddenly shouting, "What?" When he calmed down, Bowsette placed a slender finger to his lips and said, "Hush now. It would seem we both wished for the same thing, for the most part, at least. Allow me to introduce myself. I am Bowsette, otherwise known as the Cooper Queen. This is Booette. She's terribly shy, but she rules over the boos back where we're from. She's a very good friend to have. And finally, we have Compette. She's a little feisty. I guess it's hard to put it into words, but she can be very affectionate when she wants to be. And you are." Na looked at each of them carefully, noting that Booette covered her eyes and blushed whenever he looked her way. Shrugging it off, he smiled at Bowsette and said, "My name is Naruto Uzumaki. Genin level shinobi of Kanahagaka. It's really nice to meet all of you. I hope we can become really good friends." Compette licked his cheek before saying, "We're going to be more than friends, Narut, __, we're your new brides. Rejoice, for we are now your queens. Muaha." Na blinked a couple of times before a bright blush spread across his face. You just licked me. And queens? I'm confused." Bowsette sighed and petted Naruto's head, loving how soft his hair felt. "In a way, we each run our own separate kingdoms. We're queens, which means that if we ever get to go back home and you return with us, you'll be a king. Narut, __, you may have only wished for friends." Na shook his head and said, "Not just friends. People that would love me and that I could love in turn. A family, I guess. I think our wishes coincided with one another and brought us together. But are you sure you want to enter a relationship with someone you just met?" "I'm not all that special." Booette frowned as she looked at him. "You are special though. If you weren't, we wouldn't be here. But there's something really different about you. Two different energies inside of you. What exactly are you, Narokan?" The blonde teen looked incredibly nervous, but he decided he could trust these three with his secret. I'm a Genturi. I have a Buju sealed inside of me. I hold the Kayabi no Yoko within me. It's the strongest of the 9 Biju, and people hate me for it. I've been so lonely without any friends or loved ones, so I wished upon a star, and now, well, you three are here." Compette frowned at him and asked, "They hate you simply for holding a thingy in your gut. What's wrong with these people that they'd isolate a sweet boy like you?" Na sighed and shook his head. "That's the thing. The people make us Genturi. They seal the boo within us and then treat us like we're the monsters. It makes literally no sense. All the adults know I hold the Kyobi within me and they've done everything they can to keep their kids away from me. They refuse to let me have any friends and none of the adults want to be my friend either. Hell, my academy teachers wouldn't even help me when I needed help. It's been frustrating as hell trying to deal with everything." Bit frowned deeply and asked, "Narokan, be honest with us. If we didn't come here, what would you have done?" The whiskered teen shrugged and said, "I'd have tried to kill myself again. I've tried before. I just can't stand being all alone. I hate it. I hate it so much. There are times where I'll curl up and just beg for somebody to kill me or at least let me die in my sleep. Anything to end my misery, but I always heal and I don't die like I wanted to. It's been really frustrating." Bowsette frowned and hugged his head to her bountiful chest. As she stroked his hair some more, she said, "You'll never have to be alone again. We're here with you now, even if we don't have any other friends. The 4 of us will be just fine together, right?" The other 3 occupants of the room nodded in agreement. It was at this point that Na really took notice of what each of them looked like. The first things about Bowsette that he noticed were the horns and tail. He didn't care about the strange appendages, though. No, Bowette was a stunning beauty in his eyes. Booette was an incredibly pale woman with long white hair and deep purple eyes. She was clad in a flowing white dress that one would generally expect a princess like her to wear. Or was she a queen like Booette had stated? Me details. Just like with Bowsette, it was quite obvious Booette didn't wear a bra. Her dress was strapless, and while it did its job of covering the naughty bits, a generous portion of her cleavage was shown. If they were standing, he'd see that Booette was a couple inches shorter than he was. Booette, on the other hand, was about 3 or 4 inches taller than him. Compette, on the other hand, was a petite woman with black hair, black eyes, and razor-sharp teeth that he did not want to be bit by. Seriously, her teeth looked like they could chomp his arm right off if he wasn't careful. She stood shorter than Naruto by about 7 or so inches, making her almost a full head shorter than he was. She was clad in a black gothic Lolita-type dress with red frills along the edges. Unlike the other two, Compette's dress covered her form, though it hugged her body nicely and revealed that he, like the other two, had quite the ample chest. Thank you, all of you, Naruto said as he did his best to fight off the tears that wanted to trickle down his cheeks. Could you three maybe come with me to go and speak to the Hokage? I want to make a request of him. Hokage, is that your village's leader? Bowsette questioned. Naruto nodded and said, yes, this isn't exactly a kingdom like where you're from. We're in the elemental nations on a planet called Earth. Right now, we're in the village of Kanahagakar, located in the land of fire. There's a lot you'll have to learn about if you stay here with me. One example is this shadow clone technique. When an exact copy of Naruto appeared off to the side, the girl stared in wonderment. Wow, you and this Hokage of yours definitely need to explain things to us. Quick question. If you're so lonely and depressed here, why not come back with us to our home? You'd be treated like royalty and you could be happy, far happier than you could be here. We could make use of our abilities to open a way back home. I'm sure of it, Bowsette questioned. Na frowned sadly and said, I don't know if I'd be allowed. I'm technically this village's weapon and deterrent for war. Besides, I'm curious to know what the world outside of this village is like. I can't help but wonder if I'll be able to make some new friends out there. But looking into their eyes one by one, Na said, if things don't improve, will you three really take me back to your home? I don't want to be alone anymore. Bowsette, who still had Naruto's head against her bosom, smiled at him and said, of course we will. In fact, if you married the three of us, you'd technically be king of our people. You'd have the love and respect you deserve. For now, though, let's discuss things with your leader. Tell me something first, though. What about your parents? Are they not around? The spiky-haired teen shook his head and said, I don't have any. I'm an orphan, and I know the Hokage knows who they were, but he won't tell me. I don't even know if they loved me or not. He just won't say anything about them. The three friends looked into one another's eyes for a time and nodded as one. Returning their attention to Na, Booette said, then we'll just have to make him talk. Besides, looking around the room, she frowned distastefully. We need to get you into a better home. This place looks like it could fall apart at any second. Na sighed and nodded his head sadly. Yes, I hate this place, but it's the one the Hokage got for me. People have vandalized my home plenty of times and made living here an absolute hell. If my parents left a home for me somewhere, I'd love to be able to move in and be safe there. But the Hokage won't tell me anything. He doesn't seem to want me to know. Compette frowned and tugged on his arm lightly. Then come on, let's go. We need to talk to Mr. Hokage and convince him to tell the truth. If he doesn't come clean, I'm going to bite his hand off. That'll do the trick. Na chuckled for a moment before he got up and went to get dressed. When they saw the clothes in his closet, Booette frowned in disgust. Why is there so much orange? You'd look better in some other colors. The blonde sighed and said, this is all I could buy. People refuse to sell me anything else. I think they're secretly hoping I'll die on my first mission outside of the village. Then again, a lot of people don't really wear clothes that a typical shinobi should. A lot of them are fine, but there's people like Sakura who wears almost all red clothes. And on top of that, she's got bright pink hair, so hiding for her wouldn't be too easy either. Shaking his head, he said, never mind about that, though. If you girls are willing to help me, I want to get answers from the Hokage and hopefully get moved into a new home. We can't exactly live together in this apartment after all. Too cramped and too well, it's bad. Champ giggled before she and the others climbed off the bed. Looking into Naruto's eyes, she giggled to herself and asked, "Want us to leave so you can get dressed? Or can we stay and watch?" Blushing, Gnarly fled from the room with his chosen outfit for the day. Giggling to themselves, the three friends soon turned to face one another. "If things don't improve here for our future husband, we're taking him away from here to the Mushroom Kingdom." Agreed. Booette and Champet both nodded in agreement with Bowette's suggestion. "I just hope nobody tries to hurt him. I like him so far," Champet declared, grinning so wide you could see all of her dangerous teeth. Hoage's office. Hai wasn't sure what to expect when Naruto barged into his office this morning. He was even more lost when three beautiful women entered his office immediately afterwards. Watching as his secretary shut the door again, the old man looked the newcomers over carefully. While the pervert in him cried out in joy at seeing such hotties, the more rational part won the internal war. "Hello again, Naruto. Who are your friends?" Na stared hard into the Hoage's eyes and said, "Nah, you don't get the names just yet. Suffice it to say, they're my new friends. The first friends I've ever had. I'm not going to let you or anyone else take them away from me. So, here's the deal. I'm going to make you, old man." Folding his arms across his chest, the blonde glared hard into Hirozen's eyes. "It's time you told me the truth about my parents. Who were they? Did they love me? Did they leave any kind of inheritance for me? I'm tired of you trying to evade the question. If you refuse to tell me now, I'll walk out the door and you'll never see me again." "That is not a bluff either. You already know that I can outrun and even hide from damn near anyone and everyone. You'd never find me if I don't want to be found. That's a very serious threat, Naruto. I've told you before. I don't. You don't know. I know. You've told me that lie over and over and over again. Then you told me to stop asking. I'm giving you this final chance to be honest with me, old man. Do you really want me to leave the village that badly? Because once I'm gone, I am never coming back," Na said, looking and sounding dead serious right now. Champet looked at her friends before turning to Hirozen and saying, "If you don't tell him, I'm going to bite off your arm." When the young woman revealed her sharp, dangerous-looking teeth, the old man knew she could definitely follow through with her threat. Bowsette, on the other hand, remained calm as she held up a finger and allowed a small fire to spark to life at the tip. "I think we'd all like to play a little with the old man. Trying to deny a young ulling the knowledge of their parents is just cruel. So, be a good boy and tell us who his parents are and if they left anything for him." Hai scowled at the threat and made a single motion with his hand before Farandu appeared, surrounding the women and Na. "I'd be careful about making any threats against me in my village. Naruto, I suggest you look for new friends because these three." Na growled and proceeded to use the shadow clone technique to flood Hirozen's office with clones. Despite the fact they were Ambu, Na proceeded to beat the __ out of them with sheer brute force until they could no longer threaten his new friends. The only one that escaped his beating was the purple-haired one because she had always been nice to him before. Glaring hatefully at the Hokage, Naruto said, "That was your one chance to come clean. If you don't have the balls to tell me who they were, then just admit it, you rotten old asshole." The aged Hokage scowled at Na, but before he could say anything, the blonde woman walked over to a nearby portrait hanging on the wall. Removing it, she showed it first to Na and then the Hokage. "This man, this is his father, isn't it?" Seeing who it was in the photo, Naruto's eyes widened as he pieced it together. "The fourth Hokage is my father and you refused to tell me this because Hirozen sighed and began to massage the bridge of his nose because you weren't ready to know Naruto. Knowing you, you'd have shouted it from the rooftops that the fourth Hokage was your dad." Naruto clenched his fists angrily, and before anyone could stop him, he leapt over the desk and slammed a fist as hard as he could into Hirozen's face, knocking over his chair in the process and sending hers too. Embling until he hit the glass. "You bastard. How dare you? I'm smarter than that. Besides, who the hell in this village would ever believe me if I did that? I know better than to do something like that, old man. Who was my mother?" Hirozen stood up and brushed himself off before looking hard into Naruto's eyes. "I could have you arrested for assaulting me, Narok, __, but I'll let you off the hook this once." Retaking his seat, he waited for Naruto and his new friends to sit down before he began to speak. Your mother was a woman named Kusha Uzumaki. She was one of the last remaining members of the Uzumaki clan and was a princess in her own right. And before you ask about it, the ones who decided to remove the Uzumaki clan from history lessons and books and the like were the elders and the civilian Council. They didn't want to acknowledge your presence or the Uzumaki clan. We were allies for a long time, but none of that seems to matter to any of them. Grumbling to himself, Hisan rubbed the spot Naruto had punched him. It was tender, and he knew it was going to bruise soon enough. Anyways, your parents did leave an inheritance for you. I've kept it safely tucked away for when I deemed you were ready for it. But it would seem that time has come. You have no idea how many times Danzo and his ilk have tried to gain access to your parents' belongings, including the house they had left for you. Thanked Kami for Fujutsu and their extensive knowledge in such an art. Naruto frowned, but didn't say anything in response. He couldn't really think of what he should say in this instance. He was furious that his clan was stricken from the history books. He was furious that those old bastards would try to take what rightfully belongs to him. And he was furious at the Hokage for hiding all of this from him in the first place. After a time though, a thought struck him, and he grinned sadistically. All right, old man. I can accept that. However, I've got a new proposition for you. I know how team placements would go. I'd be stuck on a team with a sensei who hates me probably, and I'd be stuck with Sasuke and Sakura as teammates. Don't deny it. It's the most logical outcome if nothing is done to remedy the situation. Looking hard into Hirosen's eyes, he said, that's why you're going to put me on a team with these three. Bowsette, Booette, and Compette. You can put somebody else with Sasuke and Sakura. I don't care who because I don't care about them. Hai frowned as he looked from Naruto to the three beauties. Do you feel you can work with them easier than you would with Sasuke and Sakura? Na scoffed and said Sasuke doesn't understand the concept of teamwork or friendship. He's egotistical and full of himself. We don't get along, period. As for Sakura, she abuses me in an effort to please her. Sasuke, __, I've tried being nice to her before, but it's just not possible. We'd only piss each other off and are likely to end up killing each other. No, I'm better off with these three. Besides, we belong together. Seeing the three women blush slightly at that and offer Naruto small happy smiles, Hisanen said, very well. I don't mind putting you four together on a team. I think I know the perfect person to assign as your John and Sensei as well. Cat, remove your mask, please. When Anbakat removed her mask, revealing her face to Naruto and the girls, he smiled and said, Naruto, meet Yuga. She will serve as your John and Sensei. I expect you to do great things with this team of yours. Yuga bowed to the Hokage before she turned her attention onto Naruto again. Smiling at him, she said, I look forward to working with you, Naruto. You three as well. Likewise, Yuga-sanan, Bowsette said before she turned her attention onto the old man again. Please tell me his inheritance comes with a new home. Because we are not living in that dingy apartment building. It looks like it could collapse at any moment. Hai chuckled softly and said, yes, there is a wonderful house they had built just in case. It's protected by Fujutsu barriers that cannot be penetrated. The only way for someone to get through the barriers is if they're related to the fourth and his wife. In other words, only Naruto can access the home. He can key you three into the seals so you can come and go as you please. It is definitely the safest place in the village for all of you. Bit frowned slightly and asked, there's something you're not telling us. I can tell. The old man sighed and shook his head sadly. I've made plenty of mistakes when it comes to Naruto here. But there's one thing I feel should be mentioned right now. Naruto, you have a godfather. He was supposed to take care of you should anything happen to your parents. His name is Jiraiya. Yes, that Jiraiya, one of the three son and a self-proclaimed super pervert. Your father trusted him wholeheartedly. But Kasha-chan was smarter. She knew something was just off about Jiraiya. Naruto, I'm telling you this for your own good. Stay away from Jiraiya. He absolutely cannot be trusted. Jiraiya doesn't really care about you beyond how you might be used for some prophecy he was told of. If he ever offers you training or he dangles some kind of nifty technique in front of your face, I want you to think carefully before you accept such a thing at face value. He's been in the village numerous times since your birth and has had the opportunity to really sit down and raise you properly. Jiraiya has neglected to visit you even once. He would much rather peep on women in the hot springs or within the privacy of their own homes when they should feel at their safest. Chomped, and the other girls started to growl, chomping her teeth together a few times. The black-haired girl said, "If he ever comes near us, I'll bite off what makes him a man. These teeth aren't just for show. After all, I refuse to be spied on when I'm being intimate with my cute little darling." Na blushed slightly as Chet walked up to him, took his hand in hers, and smiled up at him. When she smirked at him, he felt a bit nervous. Then she licked his cheek again before nuzzling against him, face burning red. He soon shook it off and focused on Hirozen once more. "There's something else, isn't there? Somebody else, maybe." Hai sighed and nodded once. "Yes, a man by the name of Kakashi Hatake. He was your father's student. He knows who you are, and I asked him to please try and take care of you. But he wanted nothing to do with you. After all, if Kusha had never gotten pregnant with you, the Kirby would have never been freed and the two of them would still be alive. Everyone could have been happy. In a way, he blames you for Manado Khan's death. It's stupid, but it's how he thinks. Chances are, he'll push to have you on his team, trying to use familiar ties to sway me into putting you on his genin team. However, he would never focus on training you. I'm fairly certain he would spend all his time training Sasaki Uchiha and using you to motivate Sasuke into trying harder and getting better faster." Yuga frowned at this and said, "Not only that, Hokage-sama, the council will try to convince you to put Naruto on Kakashi's team, if only because the Sharingan has the power to control the Beiju. They want Naruto to be under control. And what better way to do it than put him on that team?" The aged Hokage nodded. "Yes, which is why I'm allowing Naruto to be on a team with you four." Walking over to the wall, Hisan placed his hand on the part of the wall where Manado's portrait had been hanging. Focusing his chakra, he opened up a square hole in the wall and withdrew a number of scrolls, some keys, and a few letters. Sealing the wall safe again, he looked at Bowette and said, "Please return the portrait to its rightful place. I would like to take you all to your new home now." Bowsette nodded and hung Man Monado's portrait up again before she and the others left the office. Glancing at his secretary, Hisan said, "If anyone comes by looking for me, I'm busy and not to be disturbed. Is that understood?" Seeing her nod in understanding, the Hokage smiled and proceeded to guide Naruto and his friends' teammates to his new home. Upon arriving, Naruto frowned slightly in confusion. Right between the Inuzuka and the Hyuga compounds, we're bound to get some questions if I'm moving in here. Hai chuckled softly before motioning Naruto forward. "I wouldn't worry too much, Naruto-kun. Hyashi and the majority of the Hyuga clan can be, sure, but they won't bother you so long as you don't bother them. Some Inuka, on the other hand, was a good friend of your mother's. She'll be more than happy to have you so close. Though, from what I understand, her son is a rotten little bastard. Is that right?" Na sighed and said, "Kazan, he's full of himself and believes he's an alpha male. Chances are, his ego will get him and his team killed. And yet somehow he's not as bad as Sasaki is. Weird how that works." Bowsette frowned and folded her arms beneath her bust. "Are we going to like anyone here? Because we haven't exactly heard good things about anyone." Hai frowned sadly and shook his head negatively. "I don't know. There's probably a few people that might make for good friends for the four of you." But sighing, he looked into their eyes and shrugged. "I honestly don't know." Booette looked a bit downcast at this, but she soon nodded determinedly and said, if there's nobody in the village that will be our friends, then we'll just have to hope we make friends while out on missions. And maybe the people of the village will start to come around." When all eyes fell on Booette, she covered her face with her hands and peeked out between her fingers for a moment before going, and shrinking behind Na. "Stop staring at me. It's embarrassing." Na chuckled softly before he turned around and wrapped his arms around the white-haired princess. "It's okay, Bian. Come on, let's get inside the house," he said before walking with her over to the gate and placing his hand against it. When it swung open a short while later, he walked up to the next barrier and frowned for a moment as he tried to remember the way to key someone into a seal like this one. After a brief while, he nodded before turning to his three new friends. "I need to use some of your blood," he said to them. The three women blinked a couple of times before nodding, deciding not to ask any questions just yet. So, Champit used her teeth to draw blood from the three of them before letting Na use said blood. Na then proceeded to do the same with Yuga. Once they were keyed into the seal, Na and the girls stepped through the barrier before turning and looking at Hirozen. I give permission for Hirozen Serbi to enter. Stepping through the barrier after it glowed for a second. Heen smiled at Na before venturing into the house with them. Once inside, Hirozen took a seat and placed Naruto's inheritance on the nearby table. This can wait for the time being. For now, I would like all of you to please sit down so we can discuss some things. When Na sat down on a nearby couch, he was a little shocked to see Bud and Bowette sit on either side of him. What caught him truly off guard, however, was when Champit sat on his lap, leaning back against him and licking his cheek again. Good boy, she said with a giggle. Na blushed badly and said, why you might not want to sit there or move too much. I am still a guy after all. Champit simply smirked at him and asked, so, you're our chosen husband. We're going to be together from now on, Sue. Wiggling around in his lap. She smirked when his little buddy started to rise. Blushing slightly, she scooted back until her butt was pressed firmly against his rock-hard member. There we go. That's the reaction I was looking for. She teased. He coughed into his fist to try and get their attention. When they looked at him, he said, please try to focus you four. Why yeah, sorry, Gramps, Na said, his face bright red at the moment. Champit simply grinned and pumped her fist into the air. I am not sorry. Woohoo. He face pumped, but soon found himself chuckling. You're a lucky man, Naruto-kun. Now, can you please tell me where you three are from? How did you come to be in Kanahagaka? And I'm curious about something. The three of you are each wearing a crown atop your heads. Are you princesses of some sort? Na wrapped his arms around Champit's waist and looked into Hirozen's eyes. Last night when I got home, I wished upon a shooting star. I wanted friends that I could love and cherish. I wanted to be loved by someone. Gramps. I was contemplating suicide again. I was fully ready to try and kill myself again. I doubt the outcome would have been any different from my past experiences, but it would have been worth another try. Then these three appeared in bed with me. Bowsette took over the explanation. At this point, Hokage-sama, we are from a kingdom known as the Mushroom Kingdom. It's another world unto itself and cannot be reached by normal means. We each have our own part of the kingdom that we control with our own followers and citizens. As for how we came to be here, well, looking at Naruto at this point, she smiled and kissed his cheek. Like Naruto-kun, I made a wish upon a star for my friends and I to be whisked away to our destined one. Like Naruto-kun, we were lonely. We only want to be loved. Shortly after making my wish, the three of us appeared in Naruto-kun's apartment, cuddled up with him. Taking a moment to think about how best to explain it, Bowsette simply said, and yes, as you have surmised, the three of us are princesses of our own little kingdoms within the expansive Mushroom Kingdom. I am Bowsette, otherwise known as the Koopa Queen. I control a vast army full of creatures such as Glubbus, Koopa Troopers, Koopa Paratroopers, Baboom MBS, etc. Pointing at Booette, Bowsette continued, Booette is known as the Queen Boo. Her people are boos and other undead creatures such as fishbones, dry bones, and gigabytes. And there are times where she can be really shy. You've already seen a few moments for yourselves. Champ wiggled her butt in Naruto's lap, getting his little buddy to spring to attention again. Afterwards, she shot her hand up into the air and said, and I'm the great Champit. I control all the chain chomps, pokés, and generally anything totally awesome. We all like to bite things and make things go boom. No idea why, but it's fun. Hirozen chuckled softly and said, you all sound like you've led some interesting lives before coming here. And you're absolutely sure Naran is your destined husband. Booette blushed and took Naruto's hand in hers. Why yes, we wouldn't be here otherwise. We aren't leaving and Naruto-kun alone. The aged Hokage simply smiled before he looked at Champit and Naruto once again. Very well, that is all for right now. Take the time to peruse your parents' belongings and look through your inheritance. Get to know one another better as well. When you're done, you should get something to eat. You're going to need to go grocery shopping so you can stock the fridge and cabinets. If anyone gives you a hassle at that point, tell them they can take it up with me. If they still refuse you service, Even then, come and inform me right away. I will not tolerate the __ any longer. Naruto nodded in thanks before showing Hirozen and Yuga out of the compound. Afterwards, he headed back inside and looked at the girls. Well, I know what I want to do first. I want to familiarize myself with the house first. I hope you girls don't mind, but I'll be taking the master bedroom, he said, sticking his tongue out at them playfully. Compette smirked as she walked up to him and poked him on the nose. Boop, we're not going to be sleeping in the other rooms. We're all going to cuddle with cuddles. The blonde blushed deeply and asked, what? You want to see cuddle with me? Bowsette grinned and said, damn right we do. If we're going to be married, it's only right that we get used to sharing a bed together. Na simply nodded slowly and said, oh, okay then. We should probably get some night clothes then. Pajamas or something, you know. Bowsette sauntered up to him and got so close to him that their noses were practically touching. What? Afraid that we'll walk around, Naruto-kun? I'd think you'd like to see that. No need to be so shy. It was at this point that Naruto's mind overloaded from the images running through his brain. Without warning, he suddenly fainted, dropping to the floor in a heap. Smirking at her friends, Bowsette threw up a peace sign and said, and score one for Bowsette. Come on, let's get him to the bedroom and then have a look around the house. I want to see what we can find. Booette giggled and walked up to them. Looking down at Na, she slowly knelt down and picked him up. Seeing how cute his sleeping face was, she kissed his nose before carrying him to the master bedroom. After removing his shinobi sandals, they laid him in bed and tucked him in. Sleep well, Naruto-kun, she said with a smile. Now that he had been put to bed for the time being, Bowsette adopted a serious look and said, we're going to head out and see what this village is really like. I want to meet some people and see what we can expect from the villagers. Then I think we should ask the Hokage for some spending money so we can get ourselves and Naruto some new clothes. Perhaps we should even look into getting some weapons of some kind just in case. While I'm sure his parents left quite the inheritance to him, I'd rather not have to rely on him for everything. It wouldn't be fair of us. Then again, begging the Hokage for money isn't any better. Compette frowned and shook her head. Let's just wait for Naruto-kun to wake up so we can see just how much his parents left for him. It might be more than we can really imagine. Think of this as a necessary expense to better prepare all of us for whatever this world has to throw at us. For now, we should go explore the village together. I want to see just how bad these people can be. Maybe even bite off some hands. Ooh. I know. Maybe toes. That sounds like fun. Booette giggled before she and the others left to go and do some exploring on their own. Once they were gone, Na opened his eyes and sighed sadly. You girls really don't know what to expect. I hope nobody tries to hurt you girls simply because you're different from them. Bowsette's group. Booette had her hands in front of her face and was turning beet red at all the stares she and the others were getting. She knew they would stand out in a crowd like this, but she wasn't expecting so much staring. After a moment more, she shouted, please stop staring so much. I can't handle it. Some people in the crowd giggled a bit before turning away. However, some of the men couldn't help but stare with lustful looks on their faces. Then there were others who weren't quite sure what to make of the three queens. These people were being wary as they saw the horns, shell, and tail that the blonde woman had. Booette was just too damn pale to be normal. Then the shortest one amongst the three had these frightening teeth. Well, damn would you look at these fine ladies, Akamaru? A feral boy asked as he approached them, looking the three of them from head to toe and then back again. He licked his lips and smirked at them. Hello, ladies, the name's Ka Inuka. How would you lovely ladies like to get with a real alpha male? I promise I'll rock your world. Booette narrowed her eyes at the name. Ka, ha, she asked. When he simply nodded his head in response, the blonde said, a real alpha male, huh? I guess our fiancé would appreciate the compliment. Poor you, losing out to the wonderful, the magnificent Naruto Uzumaki. Now he's a true alpha. Not like you. You have dead mouse and you look like you haven't bathed in over a week. Now shoo little man, if you can even be called one to begin with. Hay's eyes widened for a time before he began to hear laughter coming from the villagers around them. Clenching his fists tight, he glared at the tall blonde woman and asked, how dare you make a fool of me? How about I show you just what an alpha male like me can do to 3 underscore underscore like you? Or better yet, how about I just beat the underscore underscore out of Naruto and show you just how weak that little underscore underscore is? The three queens' eyes narrowed dangerously before they released massive killing intent, forcing everyone to their hands and knees. Looking down at Car, Champet said with a too sweet smile on her face, threatening us, we can take threatening our fiancé. That's where we draw the line. I hope you're ready to pay for your words, Mr. Car. Dude, I think I know exactly what to do with you. Yes, today was a very bad day to be KBA in Azuka. Car whimpered in fear as the ladies approached him. He was still stunned by the massive killing intent that they had slammed him with, and he was finding it very hard not to soil himself in fear. Looking at them one by one, he realized quickly that they were most definitely not normal human beings. For one thing, no normal person had a giant tail and horns like the blonde bombshell did. No, thinking on it now, he realized he had likely just pissed off 3 demons of some sort. Bowette, as if sensing his thoughts, smirked sinisterly at him before holding up a single finger. A small flame sprung to life on the tip of her finger, and she couldn't help but laugh. Little man, you made one hell of a mistake. I'd explain the whole situation to you, but I get the feeling your tiny little brain wouldn't be able to understand. So, here's what I'm going to do, you little runt. Apologize to our husband to be and beg him for his forgiveness. We don't care what you say about us, but Naruto will soon be our king. A honeymoon to our home sounds quite lovely. Wouldn't you agree, girls? Oh, most definitely. Bo-chan, Champ exclaimed with a grin on her face. I can't wait to show off the Mushroom Kingdom to Naruto. I wonder if he'd move to our home. I bet he'd really like it there. Booette nodded with a bright smile on her face. He really would. It would be a lot better for all of us if he'd just move home with us. But if he wants to stay here, then we'll just have to remain here by his side. I just hope we can help make things better for him. Hei frowned in confusion as he struggled onto his feet. You mentioned something about a kingdom. Are you 3 princesses or something? If so, why the hell did you get with Na of all people? He's pathetic. Before any of the 3 could respond, a silver-haired man with his headband over one eye stepped up beside him and looked them over critically. I'm afraid I have to agree with Car here. Na is unworthy of marrying into royalty. There are other, more suitable potential husbands here, I assure you. When Bowsette looked about ready to blow a gasket at the nerve on these punks, she suddenly felt a hand on hers. Looking at who the hand belonged to, she frowned sadly at seeing Naruto standing there, shaking his head at her. Sighing, she took a step away from the cycloptic Jonan and Car, making extra sure to hold Naruto close to her as she did. Bar-chan, Booette-chan, Chechen, it's best not to listen to people like them. Don't let them get to you. Okay. Besides, if you wanted to hurt everyone who badmouths me or treats me like garbage, you'd end up having to kill pretty much everybody in the village. I haven't even done anything and they all treat me like that. So, there's just no point in harming anyone when it won't do us any good. Na explained patiently, hoping that they would understand. Champet pouted cutely at him and asked, or, not even a little. Kimun, it'd be fun. Besides, that guy's begging to have his hand bitten off, and Car there looks like he'd be more than happy to lose a few appendages. Ooh. Maybe taking some of his toes as souvenirs would be fun. Na chuckled for a moment before saying, it's fine, Chomp-chan. We should just get the groceries and other things we need and then head on home. I don't want you ladies to have to deal with the same scorn I deal with on a daily basis. Kakashi narrowed his eye at Naruto and asked, just what kind of trick did you pull to ensnare these 3 beautiful ladies? If they knew just what you were and everything you've done, I highly doubt they'd be so accepting of you. Yeah, there's no way girls this hot would be into you of all people. You obviously did something to them to force them to be with you like this, Car exclaimed, pointing a finger at Naruto in accusation. Na didn't get a chance to say anything as everyone around them began to chime in, saying all kinds of horrible things and telling him to free the queens from his evil clutches. Slapping his hands over his ears, he tried desperately to drown them all out. He shut his eyes to avoid the glares and he fell to his knees, mumbling, shut up. Shut up. Shut up. Shut up. The 3 beauties, upon seeing the state their hubby-to-be was in, quickly rushed to him and hugged him tight. It'll be okay, Naruto-kun. Let's just get out of here for now, Bowsette said as she began trying to make her way through the crowd with her loving family. And where do you think you're going? Kakashi asked as he placed a firm hand on Champette's shoulder, holding her in place. If you want to keep that hand of yours, I suggest you remove it. Now, Champette said as she leveled such a glare on Kakashi that if looks could kill, he'd be dead many times over by now. Kakashi narrowed his eye at her and said, if I were you, I wouldn't go threatening someone of a higher rank than Y. Oh, you are, little girl. Can't say I didn't warn you, Champette said before she opened her mouth wide and went to chomp Kakashi's hand off. Before she could, however, a powerful burst of killing intent brought everyone to their knees, her and her family included. What? I've had it with all of you. You've harassed Naruto-kun one too many times. No, you've been doing it far too often for way too long now. From now on, you either leave him alone or accept him as a fellow shinobi of the village, or I send you all to Rabiki and tell him not to pull any punches. I want you all to stop and think about what you're doing to an innocent boy. Here Sarutobi exclaimed as he arrived on the scene. Kakashi, you and I will be having words. And Inuka, I've already informed your mother about your behavior here today. You'll be lucky if she allows you to keep what supposedly makes you a man. I have my doubts, though. Ka wanted to lash out at the Hokage for the insult to his manhood, but decided against it. Kakashi, on the other hand, frowned behind his mask, but nodded in understanding regardless. Approaching Hirozen pulled him into a hug and patted the top of his head gently. I'm sorry, Naruto-kun. I really have been far too lenient on these people. From now on, I won't tolerate any of it. Come, let's get you what you need, and then I'll personally escort you home. I'm so tired of these people treating you this way. You deserve far better. Sobbed as he clung to the Hoage's shirt. I just want it to stop, Gramps. I can't take it anymore. I know. Come with me. I think I know what might cheer you up a bit. You girls should come along as well. And as for the rest of you, narrowing his eyes into a glare, Hirozen scowled at the crowd of people and said, you should all be ashamed of yourselves for tormenting this sweet young child. I won't warn you again. And with that, he guided Naruto and his fiancées away from the scene. Once they were free from the crowd, Bowsette clenched her fists tight and asked, are you absolutely sure you won't let us take Naruto-kun away from here? At least for a while. Hai frowned and shook his head. At the moment, I'd like to avoid doing that if at all possible. However, if things don't improve here in the village, I might just grant you that request. For now, I want you four to rest, relax, and try to enjoy your time together. I'll do what I can to settle things, but I can't make any promises. Champ frowned as she took one of Naruto's hands in hers. No matter what, we're not leaving you, Naruto-kun. You're stuck with us, and we'll be happy together. No matter what it takes, that's my promise to you. Smiled thankfully at Chomp and gave her hand a gentle squeeze. Thanks, Chomp-chan. Anytime, cutie, Chomp exclaimed before she licked his cheek again. Seeing him blush as he usually did, she giggled and leaned in close, whispering to him, if you didn't react each time, I wouldn't do that so often. Found himself blushing even more as he tried to make sense of what she just told him. After a time, he released a sigh before looking her in the eyes. I can't help it. I'm not used to such an affectionate gesture. It's kind of embarrassing. Champette simply giggled in response as she and the others followed after the Hokage. Booette walked up beside Naruto on his other side and reached out tentatively, barely brushing her fingers against his as she tried to work up the nerve to hold his hand. When he took her hand in his, she blushed prettily but smiled at him regardless. I want you to smile, I know things are bad here, but I still want to see you as smile. I agree with her, Booette said as she walked behind him, making extra sure to keep an eye on their surroundings. No matter what hardships await us here, I don't want you to lose that smile of yours. In fact, I think you should smile more often, regardless of what they say to you or about you. Once they see that their words aren't getting to you anymore, it should help to lessen the number of people harassing you. They're simply bullies, and one of the best ways to deal with a bully is to show that their actions aren't affecting you anymore. She's right, Hazen said as they arrived at the destination. Pushing open the door, he ushered them inside. Following him inside, he looked at Na and said, once a bully sees that they aren't getting to you anymore, they tend to stop and move on. Now, why don't you all pick out some outfits? I'll pay for it all, so don't worry about the cost. After we're finished here, I'll take you out to get some comfort food. Sound good? Seeing each of them nod in understanding, he motioned for them to get to it. The three women grinned as they took their hubby to be to get something that would look really good on him. Meanwhile, Hissen noticed the look the cashier was sending Na. Stepping up to her, he smiled and said, "You're going to treat him as a valued customer and even see him off with a smile. If I ever catch you denying him entrance into your store again, I'll deal with you personally. Is that understood?" Sweating nervously, the cashier nodded quickly. "All right, whatever you say, Hokage-sama. Good. Now you're going to smile at him and his friends. Give him a little wave and make him feel welcome here. You know what I'll do to you if you refuse, don't you?" "Why yes, Hokage-sama," the cashier said before she looked at Na. When he turned her way, she offered him an awkward smile and waved at him. When he smiled at her inwardly, she wanted to scowl at the little monster, but she stomped it down in favor of smiling back at him. "Wretched beast, I really don't want you plaguing my store." Hai easily saw the hatred broiling beneath the surface. Looking hard into the cashier's eyes, he said, "Na is going to be doing plenty of business here and in other stores from now on. You can either treat him like you would anyone else that comes in here, or I can have you replaced. All of you, I'll gladly find people that value him as a person to run every damn store in this village if need be. And trust me, you won't like what I do to you if you refuse him the simple right of trying to purchase clothes. Those orange monstrosities you, were selling him before. No longer will I accept that. I'd rather he not die on a mission outside of the village. Now, are you going to behave and learn to accept him as a fellow human being? Or do I need to replace you?" The cashier couldn't take it anymore as she looked in the Hoage's eyes. "How can you value that thing over the people of your village? Does the demon have you under some kind of spell or something? That's the only way I can see you protecting that thing. How can you not see that thing for what it is? Just look at it. It's the demon in disguise." Sighing, Hissen snapped his fingers and watched as an Andrew appeared to take the woman away. Once she was gone, the Hokage massaged the bridge of his nose and said tiredly, "How could things have turned out this way? I strictly forbade anyone from leaking the information about him, and still it got out. My money's on someone from either the Civilian Council or Danzo. Knowing that monster, I'm leaning more towards him being the culprit. I don't care if there's any evidence to support that theory. I think it's high time something was done about that monster. Now, if only I could figure out how to go about bringing that monster down. I have enough on my plate trying to watch out for Naruto and his fiancées. Isn't there somebody you can get to look into it for you? Somebody that could act whereas you cannot?" Bowsette asked as she walked up to him. "Sorry, couldn't help but overhear you." Hissen frowned in thought for a time before saying, "I could try and make use of Jiraiya, but as I said before, I don't trust him around you four. If I put him to work on trying to expose Danzo and his crimes, that might just work. And if things get really bad, I think I'll recalcate. If I could get her to overcome her fear of blood, she'd make an excellent replacement for me. She could get things done and make damn sure the people of Konoha learned their lesson. But I'd rather save that as a last resort measure. She has her own vices that no ninja should ever succumb to. Gambling and drinking tch. Each of my students turned out to be a failure in their own way. Not sure where the hell I went wrong." Bowsette frowned at him and said, "The fault may not lie with you. It might just be them that failed you instead of the other way around. From what you've told us before, Jiraiya is into the pleasures of the flesh and focuses entirely on peeping on women rather than focusing his attention elsewhere. You just admitted that has given into her vices as well. I'm curious though, what about your third student? I assume you had one." Here nodded. "Yes, his name is Orochimaru. He's one of our ville's biggest traitors. He performed horrible experiments on many innocent people. He's obsessed with jutsu and learning all that he can. He's also seeking the secrets of immortality. I had a chance to put an end to him, but because I felt an attachment to him, I let him escape. There's a woman in the village by the name of Anko Midarashi. She was Orochimaru's student, and he did something terrible to her. He used her to test something called a curse seal. I have tried to get Jera to buckle down and find a way to remove the blasted seal, but I can't get him to focus on anything besides Zen. So, it's my hope that Naruto will become a Fujitsu master the likes of which this world has never seen before. I want him to free Anko from her prison of sorts. Bows nodded in understanding. I see. We haven't browsed the inheritance left to him, but is it safe to assume that all of his parents' knowledge on Fujitsu is stored within? Yes. Naruto will need to study those notes thoroughly before he even has a chance at removing Ankochan's curse seal. I've got faith in him that he'll become something truly great someday. And with you three at his side, I know that everything will be just fine. Now, have you all picked out some new outfits? Seeing Bowsette nod, he smiled and said, good, good. I'll have the owner put it on my tab later. For now, let's go get some food. Naruto, __, should be very happy with the stand I have in mind. When Naruto and the other lovely ladies joined him up front, Hirozen sealed away the chosen outfits into a few sealing scrolls. Afterwards, he led him outside and down the street to a quaint, cozy little shack. Entering, he greeted the old man Tuki and his daughter, Ayami. Go ahead and order whatever you want, Naruto-kun. It's on me today. Taking his usual stool, Naruto beamed at the Hokage before turning his attention on old man Ikyaku. I'll take 2 Naruto specials, please. What about you girls? He asked, looking at the 3 queens. Booette and Bowsette sat on either side of him, the 2 of them smiling at him. What would you recommend? That's a toughie. Booette-chan, I think you'd enjoy the pork ramen. Booette-chan, I think you might prefer something mild without a lot of spices or anything mixed in. I'll let old man Tuki pick something out for you. And Champech-chan, I think you'd probably like pretty much anything here for you. I'd recommend trying out the Na special as well. Na suggested. Tuki grinned and said, I can handle that. As her father went to work, Ayami looked at the 3 women and couldn't help but notice their appearances as well as the extra appendages on Bowsette. You 3 are new to Konoha, right? Tell me, what's your relationship with Naruto-kun? Booette smirked and said proudly, he's our fiancé. Naruto-kun is the one we were meant to be with. Now that we're together, nothing will be able to pry us apart. Ayami blinked a couple of times in shock at the declaration. Her heart felt like it was constricting inside of her chest, but she squashed that feeling and said, well, you've managed to fetch yourself some real beauties, Naruto-kun. I'm happy for you. Naruto frowned for a moment and asked, are you okay, Ayami-chan? It felt like you were upset for a moment. The ramen waitress blinked again and asked, how could you tell? The blonde shrugged and said, I don't know. I just suddenly felt it. What's wrong? Ayami frowned but didn't say anything for a while. Instead, Booette spoke up, looking at her sadly. You like Naruto-kun too, don't you? The brunette blushed. And when she didn't deny it, they knew they were right. Why, yes, I do. I have for a long time now, but he only sees me as a sister figure. Na blushed as well and asked, why didn't you tell me, Ayami-chan? I've always had something of a crush on you. I was too afraid to say anything though. Ayami smiled sweetly at him and said, because I was afraid to Naruto-kun. Looking at the 3 beauties sitting near her friend, she asked, if you 3 are sharing him, is there room for one more? I really care about him and I don't want to miss a chance to be together with him. Champ frowned for a moment as she looked at her friends. Girls, what do you think? I'm fine sharing him with you, too, but adding another girl into the mix. I don't know. Booette frowned in thought for a time before looking at the Hokage. Hokage-sama, if we do have to take Naruto-kun away from here for a while, could she come with us? Hai stroked his beard for a time before saying, I think that's a question best answered by Tuki and his daughter. Personally, I don't see a problem with it, but as I said before, I'd like to save that option as a last resort if at all possible. Bowsette nodded and said, yeah, we know. Looking into Ayami's eyes at this point, she said, if you agree not to try and hog all his time, I don't see a problem. With another girl, you're a maiden in love. I'd rather not deny you the chance to be with the one you love, even if it's Naruto-kun. But we're marrying him first. Got it? Ayami blushed a bit more and said, I'm fine with that. But if I may ask, where are you 3 from? You don't look like you're from here or anywhere in the elemental nations really. Champette grinned and pumped her fist into the air. We're air queens from the Mushroom Kingdom, though. I think we're kind of in another dimension or something right now because none of this looks familiar to any of us. Still, so long as we can be happy with our destined one, who cares, am I right? I've never heard of such a place before, Tuki said as he began laying out the bowls full of ramen. You might just be right about that. Though I think you've got a good mindset in the face of all this. Just be happy and enjoy each other's company. If you're truly meant to be together, then do whatever it takes to achieve that happiness and keep it held tight. Bowsette smiled in thanks before she broke apart her chopsticks and began to dig into her meal. When the flavor hit her tongue, she moaned in delight. This is fantastic. You, sir, are a culinary genius. Tuki chuckled a bit and said, much appreciated. Now go on, eat up and enjoy yourselves. And Ayami-chan, if you really want to be with him, you have my blessing. Just try not to fight amongst yourselves over who gets to be with Naruto in any capacity. Okay. The girls giggled at that before eyeing Naruto as he went about devouring his meal. As they watched him, each of them had a similar thought. You've been through far too much. You truly deserve to be happy, Naruto-kun. 1 week later, after dinner, they had proceeded to get enough groceries and other such necessities before returning home. As the girls had promised, they each cuddled with him in bed, the four of them dozing off together with content smiles on their faces. Things hadn't really improved for Na in the village during the week. But it was obvious that the old Hokage was cracking down on people and dealing with them in his own way whenever they acted out against Naruto in any way. Still, Naruto did as suggested and smiled, being extra sure to enjoy his time spent with his destined ones, Ayami included. Now, however, they were at the academy. Taking a deep breath, Naruto looked at his girlfriend's fiancés, and said, well, here goes nothing. Let's see how they react to seeing us together. We already know Ka is going to be a pain in the butt, that's to be expected from him, and we already know we're on a team together with Yuga as our sensei. Kami, I hope nothing goes wrong. Bowsette smiled at him and took his hand in hers. Everything will be fine. Naruto-kun, we're here for you, and the old man's probably watching over you with that crystal ball of his too, just in case. Now come, let's get in there and take our seats. Though I think Champette-chan might just claim your lap again, she teased. Chet smirked at Na and said, damn right I am. Naru's lap is comfy. Plus, it's fun teasing him. Na blushed as he so often did with these three, shaking dirty thoughts out of his mind. He proceeded to enter the academy and made his way towards the classroom where some of the others were no doubt already waiting. Proceeding into the room, they could easily make out a number of students sitting in various places throughout the room. Seeing an empty row in the top of the room, Bowette led the party of four up to the desk and chairs and gently pushed Naruto into the middle seat. She and Booette then proceeded to sit down on either side of him while Chet sat on Naruto's lap. Leaning back, she kissed his cheek and said, see, nice and comfy. Ka, who had arrived a short time earlier, glared at Naruto for a time before standing up and approaching them. Seriously, what the hell do you three babes see in this loser? Can't you see that there are much better guys for you out there? Bowsette grumbled irritably before looking him in the eyes. Really? And I suppose you think you're one of those better guys? TCH, I bet you can't even get it up, can you? Too bad. Ka growled and went to take a swing at her, only for her tail to wrap tightly around his arm. Try that again and I'll break your arm next time. Got it, punk? KBA's eyes widened as he felt the sheer amount of pressure being exerted on his arm. As sorry, it won't happen again. Good, Booette said before she released him. Now be a good boy and return to your seat. Leave us alone. Scowling at him, Ka reluctantly returned to his seat and began to brood like a certain Uchiha usually did. Sadly, this wasn't the only nuisance they had to deal with. Sasaki Uchiha had taken notice of them and had decided to approach them. With a scowl on his face, he asked, why are you with this loser? I can tell. You're all powerful. You're too good for someone like him. If you're good, I might let you help me to restore my clan. Bowsette sighed and massaged her forehead lightly to try and stem off the brewing headache. I swear you people never learn. Naruto-kun is our destined one. We've already agreed to marry him, so you'd think people would learn to respect that. But no, we keep having to deal with, like you claiming he's not good for us. So listen here, little boy. We're not interested in you or anyone else here or anywhere else in the elemental nations. Naruto-kun's the one for us and that's final. I'm tired of having to explain myself to pests like you. Before Sasaki could reply, a timid voice could be heard asking, are you really his fiancés? Does that mean? Naruto-kun looking towards the source of the voice, they saw what appeared to be a rather shy, timid young woman. In fact, she reminded him a lot of Booette, feeling a sense of kinship with the young woman, asked, you're in love with him, too, aren't you? The blue-haired girl nodded slowly and said, I always have been. He saved me, and T treated me kindly. But Na frowned at this and said, you're Hinata of the Hyuga clan, right? Seeing her nod, he frowned and said, after saving you, I was told to stay the hell away from you by some of your clansmen. When I refused, they beat the out of me. I thought you had sent them. Hinata's eyes widened and she exclaimed, I would never do such a thing. That sounds more like what my father would do. I'm so sorry, Naruto-kun. Na wasn't quite sure what to say in response to that. After a time, though, he finally looked her in the eyes and asked, you're the one that's always following me around, aren't you? Why did you never try to say hi to me or ask me how I was doing? It would have been nice to know I had a friend, somebody that cared about me, but you never bothered to say anything to me. Before Hinata could reply, Sasaki got their attention once again. Enough of this, she's a weak, and always will be. She doesn't matter here. Now, will you three give up on this loser and help me to restore my clan or not? I can't understand what any of you see in this loser. Booette scowled at him and exclaimed, and Naruto-kun is not a loser. His verse is very sweet, kind, and wonderful. And we've heard all about why you sashake Yuaha. You're a horrible little boy. So please, for everyone's sake, leave us alone. We don't want you here. Champ nodded and said, yeah, besides you shouldn't say such mean things. Hinata-chan's a sweetheart, too. And I'm willing to bet she could kick you if she had to. Now go sit down and leave us alone, Mr. Broody Jerkface. Sasaki snarled at him, but before he could do anything, they each heard what sounded like a stampede rushing towards the classroom they were in. Eyes widening, he quickly hurried back to his seat and prayed that his top two fangirls would leave him the alone. Naruto sighed and reached up, placing his hands over Chet's ears. You girls might want to cover your ears. Sakura and Ino are almost here and they can get really loud in there. We love Sasaki arguments. Bowsette and Booette nodded in understanding before the Queen Boo asked. What about you, Naruto-kun? I'll be fine. I'm used to it by now. Na said with a reassuring smile. Frowning slightly at this, the girls wanted to say something, but they chose to heed Naruto's advice and covered their ears. Not even a minute later, the door opened and in hurried two girls, one with pink hair and the other blonde. As one, they exclaimed, ha, I'm first, pig forehead. As they began to argue about who was first, Naruto sighed and looked at his girlfriends. See what I mean? They can go on like that for quite a while. Bowsette frowned deeply and asked, what the hell do they see in that stuck-up jerk? And these are only two of his fangirls. Is it the dark and broody thing he does? Because I don't see the appeal. Hinata giggled at this and said, I don't understand it either. But about what we were talking about earlier. Bowsette frowned at her and said, you weren't there for Naruto-kun when he needed a friend. Why is that exactly? The pale-eyed Haug frowned sadly and hung her head. I wanted to be, but I was so nervous. I'm shy. I tried so hard to build up the nerve to approach him, but I was always too afraid to. I mean, what if he didn't like me the same way? What if he didn't remember me? Questions like that always haunted me, and I didn't know what to do. Besides, I don't have the same kind of confidence other people do. You can probably blame that on my family. I take it you don't like your family very much. Seeing Hinata nod, Bowsette said, fine, I'll accept that answer. However, if you want to have any chance at being with Naruto-kun, you need to build up some confidence. I'll try to think something up. So, drop by our home later. Got it? Why your home? Where is it exactly? Hinata questioned curiously. Naruto looked her in the eyes and said, right between the Hyuga and Inuzuka compounds. It's not as grand as your compound is, but it's home to the four of us. If you really want to be my friend and you really want to improve your confidence, drop by. Of course, I need to grant you entrance into my home. Otherwise, you won't be able to make it past the barrier. Why, you mean, that is your new home? I wondered why you weren't at your apartment anymore. Hinata said, I'd be glad to visit. But Bowsette frowned at her and said, you're afraid of your father, aren't you? Seeing her nod, the blonde Cooper Queen said, then it might be safest for you if you just moved in with us. Your father and your other enemies wouldn't be able to get inside. Hinata shook her head and said, but he could take the matter up with the council and tell them that why you've stolen a clan eras. He could demand my return. Champit spoke up at this point. And you really think Hokage-sama would just allow that to happen? Sounds like your father's an abusive a-hole that doesn't really care for you at all. Kimun, move in with us. You'd probably be really happy if you did. The Bluette blushed prettily and began to poke her fingers together. Why? You would really let me stay with you? Because I'd really like that. Even if you don't want to share him with me, just being away from my family would be wonderful. Na smiled at her and said, if you promise to be my friend, I'd be glad to let you live with us. I don't know if there will be anything between us, but it would be great to be friends at the very least. Hinata smiled happily at him and said, that sounds wonderful, Naruto-kun. Could we take care of that tea today? I don't want to go home. I don't like my family. Before they could say anything else, Sakura and Ino decided to interrupt them. Why are you sitting on Naruto's lap? Can you say desperate? Ino questioned, sniggering to herself afterwards. Seriously, you'd have to be desperate to want to be with Na of all people. Sakura said, laughing a bit afterwards. Naruto sighed and pinched his nose to stem off a pesky headache. Why can't anyone accept that we want to be together? Is it really so wrong for me to actually be happy for once? Why do all of you feel the need to harass me and treat me like I'm garbage? I'm sick of it. I've tried to deal with it all. I've tried to fake being happy, but nothing's worked. I just want you all to leave me alone and stop treating me like dirt all the time. Everyone blinked and stared at him in shock. Ino frowned at him and asked, what's your problem? You're pathetic. You've got absolutely nothing on Sasuke, Na palmed his face and let out an agonized groan. For Sake, I have no interest in being better than that, and in case you haven't noticed, he's got no interest in any of you lousy fangirls. At least these wonderful ladies and I genuinely care for one another. The feelings are mutual. Unlike the and you fangirls, go ahead, try to tell me I'm wrong. If you look inside, you'll see the truth. No, if anything, Sasuke is the pathetic one here, and you fangirls are no better. You're all just miserable and feel the need to take it out on me. Well, I'm sick of it. From now on, just leave me alone. I won't just take your anymore. Sakura took a step back, clearly taken aback by his outburst. Without a word, she turned and walked back down the stairs, taking a seat beside Sasaki, who was silently seething at what had just been said about him. Ino soon joined her, sitting beside her and thinking over what had just happened. He's wrong. Sasaki, loves me. I know he does. They thought to themselves, refusing to see the truth. Before anyone could say anything more, Oruruka entered the classroom and prepared to use his big head jutsu to silence everyone as he so often had to do. However, upon coming to the realization that it was actually silent in the classroom for a change, he looked around at all his students. Eventually, his eyes settled on Naruto and the three women sitting with him, or on him, as was the case with the black-haired girl. Well, that's different. Shaking the weird thought off, he coughed to compose himself and said, well, let's get started, shall we? Normally, I'd give a speech about how proud I am of all of you, but let's just skip that and move on to announcing the teams, shall we? Hearing no complaints, he dived right into it. After a while, he got to Team 7 and frowned thoughtfully to himself. I thought Na would be on this team. Weird. Shrugging it off, he said, Team 7, led by Kakashi Hatake, is Sasaki Uchiha, Sakura Haruno, and Elisa Rienford. If I were you, I'd get comfortable because your sensei will be very, very late to pick you up. Don't say I didn't warn you. Naruto frowned a moment as he looked towards the girl known as Elisa Rienford. She was a really beautiful young woman with long blonde hair tied up in 2 pigtails. She had rouge-colored eyes and quite the stunning figure as well. She stood just slightly shorter than Naruto did, and he knew from watching her interactions with people that she was a real sweetheart. However, the two of them had never so much as spoken a word to one another during all their time in the academy. He wasn't even sure if she would be kind to him or if she fell in with the crowd and believed him to be nothing but an incapable, hell, he didn't even know if she liked Sasuke or no. Kami, that would be horrible. 2 fangirls for the bastard on a team with him. Elisa, as if she felt a pair of eyes on her, turned and glanced over her shoulder at Na. She frowned for a moment, wondering just what he might be thinking. With a shrug, she turned back around to face the front of the classroom. I really don't like the idea of being on a team with the broody jerk and his self-proclaimed #1 fangirl. Why couldn't I be on a team with Hinata? At least then I'd be with a friend. Moving on. Team 8, led by Kurane Yui, consists of Ka Inuka, Hinata Hyuga, and Shino Aram. Ka, if you're smart, you'll refrain from pissing Karana off. She won't tolerate your leerous behavior or your attitude, Iruka said, glaring hard at KBA. Ka was initially excited at the fact he'd be with that ultra babe, Hinata Hyuga. Then his mind wandered to whether or not their sensei was a hottie, but then Iruka's words sunk in, and he released a growl. Like, it matters. Why can't I be as lucky as those bastards? He wondered to himself as he glanced at Naruto and Sasuke. Damn, I was hoping to be on a team with Naruto-kun and Elisa-chan. Hinata said, pouting cutely afterwards. Sorry, girly. Better luck next time. Bowsette said as she patted Hinata on the shoulder. I'd watch out around that boy, too, she said, motioning towards the horned dog of the class. No telling what he might try, so be careful. Okay. Hinata nodded in thanks, but didn't say anything. All right. Team 9 is still in circulation. So moving on to Team 10. Ino Yamanaka Choji Akamaiki and Shikamaru Nara. Your sensei is Asuma Serutoi. Yuruka continued pinning Ino with a glare when she shouted about the unfairness of it all. Anyways, ignoring that outburst, Oruruka said, Team 11 is Naruto Uzumaki, Bowsette, Bure, and Champet led by Yuga. Interesting. Shrugging it off, he looked around at everyone and said, well, I've had a blast teaching all of you. I hope you all do well with your new teens. Take care, everyone. Once he was gone, Na wrapped his arms around Champet, who was still seated in his lap, and kissed her cheek. I don't know how much longer I can take you grinding your hips against me like that. Please stop. But it's so much fun. Besides, you seem to like it. She teased as she kissed his cheek in return. You should get used to it. We're going to make sure you want to spar Narok, I guarantee it. Na blushed a bit and said, I'm honestly just happy having you all with me. It makes me really happy to be with you 3. Don't you just say the sweetest things? Champ asked, giggling afterwards. Ooh. Want to go walk around a bit? I'm kind of hungry. Nara chuckled and said, some food sounds wonderful. Let's go to the dango shop. I'm feeling in the mood for some dumplings and they've got some of the best. Bit smiled at him and took his hand in hers. That sounds wonderful. Well, see you later, Hinata-chan. Okay. Hinata simply smiled at them and said, enjoy yourselves. Okay, I'll see you later. And with that, the quartet left the room to go and get some lunch. Left by herself, she sighed and hung her head. I wanted to be with Naruto-kun. I don't want to be anywhere near that stupid dog-faced jerk. Elisa, as if sensing her friend's discomfort, walked up the stairs and sat down beside her. Hinata-chan, are you going to be okay? The Hyuga Aries shook her head and smiled sadly at her dear friend. I don't know. I don't like the idea of being around Ka for long periods of time. I was really hoping to be on a team with you at the very least. Speaking of teams though, are you going to be okay? You're stuck with the jerk and his #1 fangirl. That's a disaster just waiting to happen. Elisa sighed and dragged her hand down her face. Don't remind me. Anyways, what were you all talking about up here? You looked like you were getting along with one another pretty well. Hinata blushed a bit and poked her fingers together, smiling shyly at her friend. Well, they invited me to move in with them. They're all living together with Naruto. I'm definitely going through with it. Besides, you know how my family is. I'd be much happier with them around. The blonde nodded in understanding. Of course, I'm happy for you, Hinata-chan. Again, though, be careful around Dogface. I don't trust him not to pull something if he gets you alone for any reason. Agreed. I'm more worried about you though, Elisa-chan. Konoha preaches teamwork, and I'm sure that our real tests will incorporate the need for teamwork if we want to pass. If that's the case, your team is bound to fail. Sasaki doesn't believe in the concept of teamwork, and Sakura will throw all sense and logic out the window in favor of swooning over her knight in shining armor. Hinata mocked. So, yes, I'm worried about you, Elisa-chan. I sincerely hope your Jonin-sensei at least takes things seriously and trains you all equally. Elisa scoffed at that and said, knowing my luck, my team's sensei will focus his attention entirely on the Uchiha scumbag and leave Sakura and me to our own devices. After all, the people of the village just love to suck jerk faces. Blushing fiercely, Hinata slapped a hand over Elisa's mouth. Why you shouldn't say things like that so openly. Elisa simply giggled and poked her friend on the nose. At least that got a reaction out of you. Now, come on, let's go get something to eat. I'm sure we've got the time to kill. Sounds good to me. Let's go, Hinata said, a bright smile on her face as she left the room with her best friend of many years. Later, after arriving back at the classroom, they couldn't help but sigh as they saw Sakura tearing into Elisa about what else but Sasaki. I saw the way you were looking at Sasuke, __, stay away from him, you, __, Sasaki, __, and I are meant to be together, and I'm not about to hand him over tea. Oh, the likes of you. The blonde beauty face palmed herself and let out an agonized groan. For the last time, I have no interest in Mr. Tall, dark, and broody. You're welcome to have him. I don't want anything to do with either of you, but we're going to need to work together as a team. Now, if you don't shut up and start taking your career seriously, I'll use you for target practice. Do you understand me, Sakura? Sakura scoffed and said, I don't believe you. Who wouldn't want Sasuke after all? He's the most desirable man in the village after all. And I'm going to help him restore his clan. We'll be so happy together, and I'm not about to let you come between us. True love conquers all after all. Grumbling irritably to herself, Elisa took hold of her bow and notched an arrow before firing it at Sakura, pinning her to the wall by the sleeve of her outfit. Shut up. I won't tell you again, you annoying fangirl, she said before she went and took her seat beside Hinata. Sakura struggled to try and remove the arrow, but it just wasn't budging. Let me go, you stupid, __, I won't stand for this. Na sighed and walked over to Sakura. Without a word, he removed the arrow, releasing her from her entrapment. Afterwards, he went and returned Elisa's arrow to her. Here you go, Elisa. Good luck with your team, he said with a kind smile on his face. Afterwards, he took his seat and smiled as his girlfriend sat down with him again. Sakura grumbled to herself as she looked from Elisa to Na. Why did you help me, Na? Gee, that's some way to say thanks. I helped you because you would have just bitched and complained until you were set free. Besides, it's not like Sasaki would have set you free. He doesn't care about anyone but himself after all. Now, will you please sit down and shut up? Na said, sounding awfully irritated with her. Sakura scoffed and took her seat beside her precious Sasaki, __, looking at him, she asked, you wouldn't have really left me there, would you, Sasuke-an? Looking away from his teammate, Sasaki said, HN. And that was all. Sakura frowned sadly at this and looked down at her lap. Sasaki, __, Booette frowned and said, I hope she snaps out of this fangirl mindset soon. If she doesn't take her new career seriously, she might die out there. From what we've been told, it's a dangerous world out there. I can't help but worry about her. Bowsette frowned as well. Honestly, I think she should give up before something happens to her. I don't really feel sorry for her, though, especially not with how she treats our love. Chomp nodded and said, it's not any of our business anyways. All I really want to do right now is cuddle waddle with Naruto. Na and the girls chuckled at that. They rather enjoyed cuddling with their Narukan, just as he enjoyed spending quality time with each of them. For now, they simply had to wait for their sensei to show up and take them away from the annoyances in the classroom. They had no idea what their new career had in store for them. And if they knew what they'd start out doing, they'd probably hate the very idea of being a shinobi. After all, they were bound to end up doing the chores known as dank missions. How frustrating those would be. Na and his girls truly felt sorry for poor Lisa Rienford. They had been waiting an equal amount of time as Team 7, though they weren't entirely sure why it was taking so long. The entire time they had watched as Sakura tore into Elisa for one thing or another. There was a change in Sakura's attitude, though. Well, sort of. After Sasaki blew her off, Sakura hadn't spoken a word about him. So, what was she harping on Elisa about now? It started with Sakura griping about the fact Elisa had shot at her with an arrow and pinned her to the wall. Then Elisa made a remark that Naruto missed, and ever since Sakura had been bitching at Elisa about one thing after another. Sighing heavily, Na gently moved Champit from his lap and proceeded down the stairs until he was standing at Elisa's side. Looking into Sakura's eyes, Na said, "Sakura, that's enough. Whatever tension there is between you both, you need to settle it now." When Sakura went to snap at him, Naruto held up his hand to silence her. "Sakura, I'm not trying to be mean or anything. I'm saying this for your own good. There's going to be a test to determine if we're ready to be genin. And something Konoha has always prided itself on as teamwork. In order to pass, I'm certain you'll need to work together. And we all know how Sasaki is. So, it'll be up to you and Elisa to work together and prove that you have what it takes to be true genin, whether Sasaki helps you or not." Sakura wanted to refute his point, but the more she thought over his words, the truer they seemed to be. Chancing a glance back at Sasaki, she frowned sadly and asked, "Sasuke-kun. You will work with us, right, HN?" Sasaki said as he glared at the wall. He had no interest in deigning her with any kind of verbal response. Sakura could feel tears welling up in her eyes. Turning back to Na, she said, "Thank you, Na, for before and for the advice." "I'm sorry." Na smiled at her and said, "It's fine. Best of luck in your test." Elisa looked from Sakura up into Naruto's eyes. "Thanks from me as well. We'll give it our best shot with or without Sasaki. I can see why Hinata looks up to you." Naruto offered Elisa a smile as well before he said, "Well, I just hope I don't disappoint anyone. I'm not perfect after all." Chuckling softly, he turned and walked back up to his girlfriend's teammates. Seating himself again, he allowed Champit to take her usual seat and held her close. "That was awfully nice of you, darling," Booette said with a small smile on her face. "You didn't have to do that F for them, but you did. You may not be perfect, but you're still a good person." Bowsette smirked in response to this and said, "May not be perfect, but he's the perfect man for us. That's for damn sure." Champ and Booette giggled at that while Naruto just blushed. Before any more could be said, the door opened and in walked Yuga, dragging Kakashi behind her by the ear. "Sorry I'm late. I had to convince this idiot to come with me. I wasn't about to let him make you three wait for 3 hours," she said before releasing Kakashi. While Kakashi tried to nurse his bruising ear, Yugao smiled pleasantly at Team 11 and said, "You four are with me. Please follow me, Kakashi." Seeing she had the man's attention, she said, "If I hear about you doing anything stupid, I'll be bringing you before Hoka. G-sama to answer for your, __. This means you give everyone a fair shot and you don't favor one particular member of your team. You train them all equally or I'll make sure you're replaced. Do you understand me?" Kakashi simply smiled at her and said, "I have no idea what you're talking about." Yuga narrowed her eyes at the man, but eventually just shook her head. "You used to be so much better than this, Kakashi. What a shame. I'm sure the fourth is rolling in his grave seeing what you've become," she said before leaving the room. She wasn't going to stay and breathe the same air as him. Kakashi looked furious at Yuga's comment but soon shook it off. When Na and his girlfriends moved to walk past him, the silver-haired Jonin tried to grab him by the shoulder. However, Na easily smacked his hand away before glaring into his lone eye. "Don't even try it. Don't even say a word. I won't listen to any more of your, __. You want to take them away from me," he said, motioning towards Bowsette and her friends. So, you know what? You can go suck little Ukis if you think so damn highly of him. For your sake, I hope you train your team equally and don't leave Sakura and Elisa on the side. And for the record, I agree with Yuga sensei. Father would be disappointed with you. And with that, he left the room, followed by his 3 girlfriends. Kakashi glared at them until they were gone. Afterwards, he turned to his supposed team and said, "Meet me on the roof. I'm giving you 5 minutes. Don't keep me waiting." And with that, he was gone. Elisa and Sakura watched as Sasaki left, but the 2 of them chose to stay behind and talk there. Sensei had kept them waiting and would have kept them waiting for much longer if Yuga hadn't done what she had. So, they decided it was better to try and bury the hatchet and start off on a new leaf together. Sakura, I apologize for earlier. I shouldn't have pinned you to the wall like that. I admit you were getting on my nerves, but I still shouldn't have aimed my weapon at you. And for that, I'm sorry. Sakura shook her head and said, "It was my fault. You have nothing to apologize for, Elisa. I didn't think Sasaki was such a jerk. And our sensei doesn't sound like he'll be any better. I get the feeling he's only focused on Sasaki. I swear if he favors that jerk over us and leaves us out to dry, I'm talking to the Hokage about it. Besides that, did you hear what Naruto said? Our sensei doesn't seem like the nicest person in the village. That's for sure." The blonde nodded and said, "Agreed. What kind of person tries to break up a happy relationship like that? Besides that, they clearly really like Na. What gives him the right to decide who is good enough for them or not?" "Seriously," Sakura said, "what a jerk." "Gee, I'm glad you think so highly of me," Kakashi said as he stared at him from the doorway. "I thought I told you not to keep me waiting." Elisa and Sakura simply smirked wickedly at him. "Turnabout is fair play, sensei. Either take us seriously and treat us with the respect you expect us to show you and we'll show up on time next time. If you keep making us wait as long as you did today, then you can expect the same treatment in return." Elisa said, "I am your superior. When I give a command, I expect you to follow it to the letter. I could fail you right now for your insubordination." Kakashi said only for Sakura to interrupt him before he could say anything more. "And we have no problem taking matters up with Hokage-sama. If you try to push the issue, we'll talk to him and get transferred to a team where we actually matter to the Jonin in charge. Now, are you going to take us seriously or not?" Kakashi narrowed his eye at them for a time before he scoffed and left the room. This time, the 2 girls followed after him, deciding to just get this, over and done with. "I really wish I was on Hinata's team," Elisa thought to herself with a scowl on her face. "Nah, you know he's going to pass the team regardless of the fact that Sasaki is not a team player, right?" "Nah," asked Yuga. Yuga grumbled irritably and said, "Oh, I know. I don't like it, but it's his prerogative. I swear though, if he doesn't take training those 2 girls seriously, I'll push to have them transferred to another team. I know Elisa would have loved to be paired with Hinata, so perhaps we could work something out there. Not sure what we could do about Sakura." Bowsette frowned and said, "Even if she apologized, I don't want her on this team. I'd say put her on Team 10, but her rivalry with that Ino girl wouldn't help either of them. They'd constantly be at each other's throats. In the end, though, I suppose it's up to the Hokage what to do with them." As Bowsette shrugged it off, Booette frowned slightly and said, "Shem may have been mean to Naruto before, but she still deserves a chance. Doesn't she?" Bowsette shrugged again and said, "I'm not saying she doesn't. I just don't want her transferred onto our team. Hokage-sama can figure out what to do with her. She's got a lot of catching up to do if she does stick to this career of hers. She's got no meat on her bones, no muscle to speak of either. I honestly hope that she starts eating healthier and works out. One can only hope." Yugao said, "Naruto, I want you to keep an eye on them with your shadow clones. If Kakashi starts to show Sasuke signs of favoritism and neglects the other 2, I want you to inform me right away." "Okay." Na nodded and said, "Of course, Yuga-sensei. First though, are we going to have a test as well? Or have you decided we'll be okay?" Yuao stopped and turned to face her team. "Hokage-sama put me in charge of this team for a reason. As far as I'm concerned, you're all just fine. But I want to do some tests to see how well you all work together regardless. So, Here's what I want you to do, she said, a smirk slowly spreading across her face. I want you to work together to steal 3 items from the other team's sensei. From Kakashi, I want that little orange book of his. From Karani, I want you to steal the paper she keeps inside her left pocket. Finally, from Asuma, I want you to steal his pack of cigarettes. Bring them to me and you'll have passed my test. Champlin frowned thoughtfully for a time before asking, does it matter how we obtain the items? Or can we do pretty much whatever we want? 'Cause if that Kakashi guy tries to touch me again, I'm going to bite off his hand. Yao shrugged and said, do whatever you like. Just try not to hurt Karani, please. Kakashi and Asuma are fair game to maim and or injure in whatever way you please. Kurenai is a dear friend, however, and I'd rather she not be hurt. Gotcha. Mind if I ask why you don't like Asuma, though? Bowsette questioned curiously. Yua frowned deeply and said, Asuma's been harassing Karina for months now. She's not interested in him, but he still persists on bothering her. He's liked Ka in that regard. He doesn't know how to take no for an answer. Besides, Karana is already in a relationship with one of her friends. And no, I'm not telling you who. If she wants to tell you, that's her prerogative. Na smirked and said, I already know who she's seeing. Anyways, I've seen the 2 of them walking with each other throughout the village, always holding hands. They look really happy with one another. Yua chuckled softly and said, of course, you already know. I shouldn't be surprised. Shrugging it off, she turned and pointed towards a training ground some distance away. I'll be waiting for you in training ground number 4. Try not to keep me waiting too long. Okay. Na saluted her and said, yes, ma'am. Well, get those items for you. No problem. They should still be with their teams, probably having lunch or something by now. I'm looking forward to screwing over Kakashi. Bowsette smirked and said, this is going to be fun. Bit giggled and said, if need be, I see can always be become transparent and sneak up on them. Getting the items should be easy enough that way, right? Champlin pouted cutely at her and said, where's the fun in that though? I want to chomp off Kakashi's hand. Naruto sighed and said, we can decide how to get each item when we see them. Team 7 is probably on the roof of the school. Team 8 is probably at the bakery nearby knowing Hinata's craving for cinnamon buns. As for Team 10, they're probably at Yakiniku getting some barbecue knowing how Choji is. I say we hit Team 7 first. I don't trust Kakashi to stay still for long. Good point. How are we going to sneak up on him though? Getting that book from him won't be easy. Bowsette questioned. Naruto smirked and said, you just leave that up to me. A little divide and conquer trick should work to distract him. Trust me. Champ grinned and said, I'm looking forward to this. This is going to be fun. Team 7. Kakashi smiled at his team as they were finally all together seated before him. However, he noticed that Elisa and Sakura were sitting as far away from Sasaki and him as they could. Frowning at this behind his mask, he soon shrugged it off and said, let's get introductions out of the way, shall we? I'll go first to give you an example of what to say. My name is Kakashi Hatake. I have a few things I like and plenty of things I don't like. I don't have many hobbies in my dream. Shrugging again, he pointed towards Sakura. Your turn, Pinky. Sakura narrowed her eyes at him before saying, my name is Sakura Haruno. I used to like Sasaki, but not anymore. I wish I could say I like Ino, but after we broke off our friendship to chase after this bastard, I can't even deal with her anymore. So, what I do like is people that treat me with some respect and kindness. That means people like Naruto and Elisa. I like chocolate chip cookies and mint ice cream. I dislike arrogant snobs like Sash. I also dislike you, Kakashi. I'm sure you can figure out why that is. I like the Princess Gale movies and romance novels. As for a dream, I suppose I want to meet a nice guy and settle down with him. Having a family sounds really nice. Kakashi narrowed his eye at her, clearly not pleased with what she had said. Instead of commenting on it, however, he looked at Elisa and said, you're next. Elisa smirked and said, my name is Elisa Rienford. I like my family's maid, Sharon Kger. I like Hinata a lot as well. She's my dearest friend. I like archery as well. I dislike Sasaki and his fangirls. And like Sakura, I can't stand you. I also can't stand my mother anymore. Not since Dad passed away last year. My hobbies are practicing my archery and tinkering with machines of all kinds, big and small. Finally, my dream is to take over the Booette company and bring it to new heights. And like Sakura, I want to get married someday and have children. Kakashi sighed aggravatedly and asked, "Are you two going to show me any respect at all? I am your sensei after all. I think that entitles me to some respect." Elisa and Sakura looked into each other's eyes before turning back to Kakashi. "No," they said as one. "You haven't earned our respect yet, Kakashi." Sakura continued, grumbling irritably. Kakashi turned to Sasake with an eye smile and said, "Your turn, Sasake." Sasake grunted in response before saying, "My name is Sasake Uchiha. I have few likes and many dislikes. I don't have any hobbies and my ambition is to kill a certain man and restore my clan. In other words, I've got a huge stick up my I like reading gay and I dislike when people diss the hairdo. My hobbies are grunting in different syllables and taking it up the and my dream is to kill my brother for daring to paint my house red and to take it up the from you Kakashi-sensei," Naruto said as he appeared on the roof with them. Despite themselves, Sakura and Elisa began to snicker to themselves. Sasake was seething in anger and Kakashi was looking at Naruto with disdain. "What are you doing here? Shouldn't you be with your Kakashi questioned angrily. Naruto frowned at the man and said, "First, don't go calling my girlfriends, ever again. Second, I'm just borrowing a little something. I might or might not give it back, depending on how well you behave." Kakashi blinked in confusion before Na held up his dear autographed copy of Jeria's first Ika book. Eye widening, he tried to grab it back, only for Naruto to toss the book over the edge of the roof. Screaming in anger and frustration, Kakashi rushed towards the edge of the roof, only to see over 100 Naruto clones running around, each of them with an exact replica of Kakashi's favorite book. "What the hell have you done?" Na shrugged and said, "Oh, nothing major. I just need to borrow your book for a while. And before you go chasing after my clones, you are still in the middle of a team meeting. Try to keep your priorities straight." Kakashi barked, lunging at Na. Kakashi gripped his throat tight and began to choke him. He was so angry he never considered the possibility that he was either going to kill the real Naruto or that the Naruto before him could be a clone as well. When it smirked at him and said, "Boom." Kakashi's eye widened before he was caught in an explosion, sending him flying off of the roof, screaming in unbridled rage. "You son of a bitch." The real Na smirked as he walked off casually with his girlfriends. "And that's one." Booette giggled and flipped the book around in her hand. "What is this book about anyways?" Na deadpanned at her and said, "It's straight up. There's no real story, just and more. Written by the super pervert himself, Jeria. Like Gramps said, it's best to steer clear of that depraved pervert." Bowsette nodded and said, "Noted. Now, who should we strike next?" "Asuma. Well, save Karana for last. I'm hoping we can just talk to Karana and convince her to give us the paper for a while. We'll return it when our test is over. Our Yuga-sensei will, I'm sure," Na said. Champit grinned and said, "I wonder if Asuma will miss his hand. I want to chomp something off." Bu and the others giggled at this before she said, "I think it should be the one to get the smokes. I can turn invisible after all." Champit pouted cutely at her, but soon slumped over and said, "You've got a point. Then who will talk to Kerr and I? Bowette or me?" Bowsette patted her friend atop the head and said, "I think it'll be for the best if I talk to her, or we could both approach her." Champ nodded eagerly and said, "Let's do that. I don't want to be left out of the fun." Giggling to themselves, the team of 4 hurried off towards Yakiniku to snatch their next item. Yakiniku Q. Asuma was gawking in shock as he watched Shoji wolf down plate after plate of food. Idly reaching for his wallet, he opened it and stared in abject horror at the severe lack of funds. "Shoji, you can stop anytime now. I can't afford to keep feeding you like this." Shoji glared into Asuma's eyes and said, "You promised an all-you-can-eat buffet of food. I'm not going to stop until I've had my fill." Asuma looked even more horrified at that proclamation. This time, his hand reached down to fumble for his smokes, only to realize that they had mysteriously vanished. Eyes widening, he looked at Ino, who sat to his left. "Did you take my cigarettes?" Ino frowned at him and said, "Of course, I wouldn't touch those disgusting things." Asuma frowned and looked at Shikamaru. And you? I'm sure Choji didn't take them. Shikamaru stared blankly into Asuma's eyes and said, no, you sure you didn't drop them somewhere? The smoker frowned and began patting his pants again. Where the heck did they go? I know I had them on me when we entered the restaurant. Outside, Booette held up Ima's package of cigarettes and giggled evilly to herself. And that makes 2 team 8. Car, I swear to Kami that if you keep looking at my like the lecherous pig you are, I'll put you in a genjutsu. You have no chance of escaping from. Kurani said, glaring at the boy who couldn't seem to look her in the eyes. Hinata stopped nomming on cinnamon buns to glance at Kurana and Ka. I think he wishes he had Naruto-kun's luck with the ladies. He knows he can't get a date, but he's too stupid to realize why that is. She said before she resumed snacking on her yummy treats. Cinnamon Yumi. Ka glared at Hinata and said, I don't see how that loser managed to bag 3 hotties. I don't understand what any of you girls see in him. Hinata smirked as she looked into her sensei's eyes. See what I mean? Jawless. Before any more could be said, Bowsette and Champit walked up to their table on the outdoor patio. Bowing politely to Kurani, Bowsette soon straightened and said, hello, Kurani-san. Our sensei has sent us out to collect 3 items for our test. We got what we needed from Kakashi and Asuma, and we decided it would be best to just talk to you directly rather than steal what we need from you. Her and I quirked a brow and was about to ask what they needed. But Ka beat her to the punch. Why the hell do you girls like that loser so much? What the hell does he have that a true alpha like me doesn't? Champit scowled at him and said, for one, he doesn't stink like you do. He also respects women whereas you view them merely as objects. Bowsette added, it helps that he's cute and has a nice butt. Hinata said with a giggle. Ka GKED at the 3 of them before clenching his fists. Angrily. As far as I'm concerned, you're all just dumb, that don't know what a real man looks like. You 3 will be lucky if that loser doesn't get you killed on your first real mission. Her and I scowled at Ka and said, Keba, I'm giving you a choice. You can either shut up and stop badmouthing Na, or I can take you straight to your mother and tell her exactly what you've been saying and doing. Maybe she can beat some sense into you. KBA scoffed at the thread before staring at Bowette lustfully. Seriously, what's a hot, like you doing with that loser? You some kind of freak that's into the dirty, don't say I didn't warn you, Kurani said before she trapped the manji mud in her NA. Stai genjutsu. When he began to cry and beg for something to stop, Kurinai smiled pleasantly and turned to face teammates against you were saying. Champit smiled brightly at her and said, you sensei wants us to borrow that paper in your pocket. Shall give it right back, but she sent us to get a few things, and that happens to be the last item we need. Can we please borrow it? Her and I looked hesitant, but before she could speak, Bowette spoke up. If you don't want to hand it over, that's fine. You could just come with us to see her. So long as we get it there somehow, I don't think she'll mind too much. The red-eyed beauty took a moment to think on it before she nodded. Looking at her students, she placed some money on the table to pay for their snacks and drinks. Afterwards, she said, you're dismissed. As Kurani left with Bowette and Champit, Hinata looked at Ka, who had curled up on the floor in a fetal position. Shrugging her shoulders uncaringly, she finished the rest of her cinnamon buns before she left the restaurant without a word to either of her teammates, left behind. Shino looked at Ka and shook his head. Such poor behavior. You will obviously be the weak link in our team, he said before he helped Ka break out of the genjutsu. Afterwards, he left without another word. Ka blinked as he looked around for a moment. Where'd everybody go? Team 11. Yuga smirked to herself when she saw her team enter the training ground with Kurana in tow. Approaching their sensei, they went to hand her the items procured from Kakashi and Asuma, only to hear an angry roar coming from behind them. Quickly turning around, they saw a very angry Kakashi charging towards them. So acting quickly, Bowette took Kakashi's book from Booette and held it up while producing a fire on the tip of her left index finger. Take another step and I burn this thing to ashes, she threatened. When Kakashi took another step forward, Bowsette pressed the flame against the book, watching as it began to burn. Stop right there, Kakashi. I won't have you attacking my beloved. Before things could escalate even further, Yugao stepped in front of her team and said, Kakashi, I suggest you back off now. If you want your book back, you'll behave yourself. I'm the one that ordered them to obtain these items. If you're going to be mad at anyone, direct it towards me. Seeing as he wasn't calming down, Naruto looked into Bowsette's eyes and nodded his head once. Do it with pleasure, Bowsette said before burning the book to ashes. Letting them blow away in the wind, she smirked wickedly at Kakashi and said, Oops, I didn't mean to do that. So sorry. Kakashi's eye widened, and he collapsed to his knees. And no, not my first edition, autographed copy. His shocked expression soon gave way to a furious one. How could you do this to me? What the hell did I ever do to you? Do you know how much that book cost? Booette quirked a brow at Kakashi and said, What did you do? You tried to take us away from our one true love. I think we all know who the better man is that you mentioned. And let's face it, he's got no way to please a lady, especially considering he fantasizes about taking it up by his brother. No, Kakashi, you deserve this punishment. If anything, you deserve far worse. You would have tried to kill our beloved if you had the chance. You insulted him, humiliated him in front of a large crowd of people, and you're a prick. If I were you, I'd go home and seriously reconsider my life. So, shoo. Before Kakashi could reply, Yuga said, I suggest you do as she said. Leave my team alone or else. Or else what? You'll kill me. Cut off my man jewels. What the hell else could you do to me besides taking away my precious treasure? Kakashi questioned angrily. Yugao said, Oh, killing you would be a mercy. I do believe I'll get Anko involved. She'd love to get her hands on you and not in the pleasant way you might be imagining. Staring hard into his eye, she continued. I can also take matters up with Hokage-sama. Trying to harm one of my students definitely won't look good in his eyes. Hell, if you even think about trying to harm them in any way, I'll get Hokage-sama involved. That's a promise. Kakashi scowled at her before he turned and stormed off. This isn't over, not by a long shot. Turning back to smile at her team, Yuga said, Excellent job, Kerr and I. Sorry for dragging you here like this, but I wanted to see how they worked together as a team. Thank you for your cooperation. Kurani nodded in understanding before looking seriously into her friend's eyes. You do know he's not just going to let this go, right? Are you sure your students will be okay? Yua frowned thoughtfully for a time before she looked into her students' eyes one at a time. They'll be fine. I'm sure they can handle themselves should Kakashi try anything. However, if he does attack them, there will be hell to pay. I'll make sure he's demoted and removed as Team 7 Sensei. Good. So, what did you have them take from Asuma? Kurini questioned. Champit grinned and held up Asuma's pack of cigarettes. Without a word, she handed it to Bowette to dispose of properly. Kurini giggled a bit and said, I see. Serves him right indeed. It does. Yugao said, Anyways, you're all dismissed. Try to have a pleasant rest of the day. Tomorrow is when we'll deliver the news to Hokage-sama about who passed and who failed. Personally, I hope Kakashi fails Sasaki at the very least. However, knowing him, he'll pass the team just so he can focus on Sasaki. Damn bastard. As the team walked off to spend the rest of the day together, Kurani looked into Yuga's eyes and said, I'm tempted to ask Hokage-sama if he'll trade Ka to Team 7 in exchange for Elisa. I can't stand that pig. The purple-haired woman sighed and shook her head exasperatedly. He's really going to be a pain in the, isn't he? Yes. The entire time he kept staring at my then he called us women, that should be honored to be with him, a real alpha male. It's also obvious that he's jealous of Na. I wouldn't be at all surprised if he and Kakashi seek to harm Na and his girlfriends. Kurinai said. Yuao frowned deeply and said, Of course. Have you considered talking to Suma Hokage-sama? Kurini nodded and said, If Ka causes problems in tomorrow's test, I'll be taking matters into my own hands. I refuse to work with a lek like him. Glad to hear it. Have you already eaten? If not, we could grab a bite to eat together. I'm interested in hearing what you think about your team. Besides, Ka, of course, you are asked. The beautiful Ravane giggled a bit and asked, Is this your way of asking me out on a date? Giggling as well, Yugao shook her head and said, Of course not. Besides, you're happy with Hana. I just want to spend time together as friends. That's all. I know, Karani said before she walked with Yuga. I didn't eat earlier, so yes, I'm starving. If you're paying, then I'll gladly have dinner with you. Glad to hear it, Yuga said as she walked beside her friend. Na frowned as Car blocked their path. Seriously, haven't you learned your lesson yet? He questioned. Car snarled and pointed angrily at him and his girls. I don't care. I'm not going to stop until all the are mine. Starting with those three right there, he exclaimed angrily. Seriously, how do you expect words like that to win us over, let alone any other girl you taken into? Santin, Booette questioned with a raised brow. KBA scowled at her. But before he could say anything, they heard Sakura's voice say, if I were you, I'd shut up before you shove your foot further into your mouth. You're obnoxious, Car. Maybe if you treat women with some respect, they'd actually respond to your advances. Car scoffed at this and said, what do you know, you're too damned ugly for anyone to hit on you, let alone that Sasaki, you're so into. Sakura scowled fiercely at Car and said, for your information, I'm over that, and I'm not some ugly, like you claim. Sure, I may not be the prettiest girl out there, but I'm certainly not ugly. Elisa put a hand on Sakura's shoulder and said, don't let him get to you, Sakura. He only thinks with his lower head. There's no blood flow to the brain. Car growled at the insult, but soon found himself smirking. Well, unlike Sasaki and the idiot over there, at least I can get it up. Soon enough, you babes will be begging me to mate with you like the in heat you are. Hinata chose this moment to walk up and flick Car in the back of the head hard, causing him to let out an ouch. Walking past him, she walked up to Naro and smiled bashfully at him. Hello again, Narutkan. Is that offer to move in with us still open? Before Narut or his girls could reply, Car snarled and lunged at Na. How dare you? First those three behind you and now Hinata. Why the hell do you get all the girls? You loser. Champ chose this moment to lunge forward and bite clean through his wrist, severing his hand from the rest of his arm. Spitting it out of her mouth afterwards, she said, try to hurt our loved one again, and you'll lose more than just a hand. Ha's eyes were wide in shock. Then after a period of seconds, the pain registered and he let out an agonized scream. It was at this point that Asuma walked up to the scene. Shaking his head, he picked up Car's severed hand and placed a hand on Car's shoulder. Let's go get you patched up. You don't go pissing off women that can maim you, kid. Let this be a lesson to you, he said before vanishing with Car. As soon as they were gone, Elisa walked up to Hinata and the others with Sakura at her side. Wasn't that a little much? She questioned unsurely. Champid shrugged and said, we warned him before numerous times. Actually, it's his own fault that he didn't listen. Hopefully, this will finally teach him a lesson. Elisa shrugged and said, fair point. I still find it amusing that you stole Kakashi's book from him like that. Looking at Na, she smirked at him and said, I assume it was for a good reason. After all, he was pretty pissed. Narut shrugged and said, oh well. Sensei wanted to test our teamwork, and we each took our turns getting what we needed. As for Kakashi, I don't care what he thinks of me or what he plans to do to get his revenge. He's an and loves to suck. You know who's every chance he gets. I'm just sorry you girls have to deal with such a jerk. Sakura and the others with him giggled at that. Well, deal with it when he starts ignoring us in favor of Sasaki. That jerk's the only one that Kakashi called by name. He was insulting and rude, especially when we gave him a taste of his own medicine. If he decides to show up late tomorrow, too, well, definitely talk to Hokage-sama about it. Good. I just hope he doesn't try to kill Narokan. Bowsette said he was ready to kill him earlier if that's what it took to get his precious Smud back. I have half a mind to go and talk to the Hokage about it and see what he wants to do about it. Hinata frowned deeply and said, that's not good. Kakashi, Car, and Sasaki seem like really unstable people now that I think on it. They're all terrible people. Are you sure we shouldn't talk to Hokage-sama right now and get this problem taken care of before it gets worse? Before Na could say anything, Sakura walked up to him and grabbed his hand. Gently tugging on his arm, she said, come on, Na. We're going to talk to Hokage-sama. No buts and no questions asked. I'd rather you not be hurt because of a bunch of jerks with egos so big their heads might burst. Sighing softly, Na allowed Sakura to tug him along, smiling at her the entire time. Thank you, Sakura, he said before glancing over his shoulder. Each of the girls were now following him, which he was grateful for. I sure hope Gramps can do something to nip this problem in the bud. I wasn't quite sure what to expect when Naruto entered his office with numerous girls in tow. Looking between each of them for a moment, he soon turned his gaze back onto Naruto and asked, what happened this time? I assume there's a reason you're here with so many lovely young ladies. Na frowned deeply and said, Kakashi and Ka happened. Sighing, he rubbed the back of his head and said, you sensei wanted us to take 3 items from Kakashi, Asuma, and Kurani. 1 each, naturally, so I volunteered to take Kakashi's precious orange book. After I stole it, and he couldn't find it again, he tried to choke my clone to death, thinking it was the real me. When he found me later with my team, he moved to attack me again. He looked like a deranged psychopath. Bowsette torched his book and that seemed to stop him dead in his tracks. But that won't be the end of it. It's obvious he still wants to kill me for what I did. And I worry what he'll try to do to Bowette-chan for destroying it. He said it was a first edition autographed copy and acted like that book was his whole life. Then there's Ka, Bowsette said, getting the Hoage's attention. When Champ and I went to speak with Kurani, he wouldn't stop leering at us. Before that, he wouldn't even look Kurani in the eyes. Too busy staring at her chest. When we were making our way back into the village after Yuga let us go, Ka approached us again. Sakura, Elisa, and Hinata showed up at that point as well. He insisted that we are, in heat or some such thing. Said that he's a real man and Naruto and Sasuke can't even get it up or please a woman and called Sakura an ugly, everything he said was derogatory, rude, and quite insulting. Earlier today, Naruto and his girlfriends told me that I could move in with them. I'd be free from my father away from his abuse. When I asked Naruto if the offer was still open, Ka lost it and tried to attack him. Hinata explained. Chet literally chomped his hand off. Asuma took him to the hospital to get it reattached. But somehow I doubt Ka has really learned his lesson. Then there's an hour problem with Kakashi, Elisa said, bringing the Hoage's attention to her. Kakashi would have made us wait 3 hours for him to show up if Yugao hadn't dragged him to the classroom by his ear. He was rude to Sakura and Ian was honestly kind of insulting. Sasuke was the only one he called by name and the only one he really seemed to be interested in. I get the feeling he's not going to be much of a sensei. Sakura shook her head and said, it's not only Kakashi. I think Sasuke needs some serious mental help or something. Remember his introduction? Seeing her new friend nod, Sakura continued. Sasuke doesn't seem to care about anyone or anything. The only thing on his mind is revenge against Itachi. I think revenge is all he knows at this point. It's kind of scary. He nodded and said, I see. It would seem I need to deal with these problems before things can get even worse. Sighing exhaustedly, he summoned a few of his ambu and said, collect Kakashi Hatake, Sasuke Uchi, and some Inuzuka for me. Actually, bring me Anko Midarashi as well. Tell her I have a job for her, and it can't wait. After the Anbu vanished to go and do as they were commanded, Hisan looked at the people gathered before him and motioned towards the couch and chairs. There might not be a lot of space, but try to make yourselves comfortable for the time being. And please try to behave while in my office, he said, leveling Chompet with a pointed stare. Chet pouted cutely but nodded her head in understanding. Looking at her boyfriend, she asked, Sue, want to take the couch? Naruto chuckled to himself. He knew exactly why Chet wanted the 4 of them to take the couch. Shaking his head, he looked at Sakura, Elisa, and Hinata with a smile and said, you 3 should take the couch. I don't mind standing with one of my precious queens. Elisa smirked at him and pointed at the couch. Sit with your girlfriends, nah. I'll stand and let Hinata and Sakura take the chairs. Before they could start to debate over who should sit where, Hisan coughed to get their attention. Pointing at one of the chairs, he said, nah, I want you to sit there. If Chet wants, she can sit on your lap again. But she has to behave. I know how she gets with you. Watching as Naruto and Chet took the chair, he looked at Sakura, Hinata, and Elisa. You 3 take the couch. as Naruto suggested, turning his gaze to Bowsette. He asked, "Are you willing to stand for the time being?" Bowsette-chan. I figured Booette would take the chair for the time being. Bowsette smiled and gave her fellow queen a gentle push towards the chair. Sit. I don't mind standing. Watching Booette take a seat. She stood by Naruto and placed a gentle hand upon his shoulder. Smiling down at him, she said, "It'll be okay, Naruto, __, we aren't going to let anything else happen to you." Smiling thankfully at his girlfriend, Na would have said something, but four people soon entered the room. Kakashi, Sasake, Anko, and some. Upon seeing Naruto, Kakashi's eye narrowed into a glare, but he didn't say a thing. "Yeah, this, __, wants to kill me." I watched the four of them for a time before he said, "Some things have come to my attention that I could not ignore any longer." Looking into Sum's eyes, he said, "Sunam, your son is a Lyris, disrespectful pig. I am tired of him insulting and degrading the females of this village by referring to them as things such as, __, inhitor, __, or whatever else he happens to be saying to them. He has been warned time and time again to stop, but he simply would not listen. Champion here." Here he motioned to the young woman sitting upon Naruto's lap. "Removed Ka's hand as punishment when your son foolishly tried to attack Na in a jealous rage." Before Sum could say anything, Hirozen pinned her with a glare and said, "I am of the belief that someone within your clan is poisoning his mind with certain ideas and has been for years. It has been long enough that these ideas have taken root and refused to leave his brain. If it is not someone from within your clan, it is someone else of significant influence on your son." Turning his gaze to Anko at this point, he said, "Anko, I am giving you a mission that I want to be your priority from this point forward. Help find the one responsible for poisoning Ka's mind with such thoughts and ideas. Once you have found this person, bring him before me so we can sort this ordeal out properly. Whoever it is will not go unpunished." Looking into Sum's eyes again, he said while working with Anko to find the perpetrator, "I want you to do whatever it takes to remove these foolish notions from your son's head. If need be, get Inaki to help you. Maybe some therapy sessions are what he needs. Hell, if I know." Sunam nodded and said, "Damn that boy. I wondered where the hell he was getting such notions from. I tried to knock some damn sense into him, but he just wouldn't listen to me. Always spouting some kind of __, instead of obeying. If I can't fix this somehow, I'll take him to see Inoki. I'm not giving Ka a choice in the matter. For what it's worth, though," bowing to the Hokage, she said, "I'm sorry for my son's unruly behavior. I failed as a mother." Na frowned at this and said, "You didn't fail as a mother, Chuman. Your son is the one that failed you. Whoever it is that filled his head with such nonsense is the one at fault here. Not you." "Okay, he's right. You know," Bowsette said, "Keba is a rude little punk, but I think the one behind his bad attitude is the one you should really be mad at. Deal with that jerk and feel free to let out a little of your anger on that guy. Could be therapeutic." Soon chuckled and said, "Thank you, Hokage-sama. With your leave, we'll get started right away." Hirozen nodded and said, "Anko, I expect this to take priority. I know you have your duties at T and I to attend to, but this comes first for the time being. No matter what, I want to ensure two things. 1. Keep Ka from becoming a rapist if this mindset of his continues. And 2. Prevent the culprit from corrupting any more young men. He's essentially training young boys to become future rapists. I do not want that, and neither do you. Now get going, both of you." Enko nodded before turning and leaving the office with Soon. Once they were gone, the Hokage turned his gaze on Kakashi and said, "Kakashi, I am very disappointed in you. I am sure Manado is pissed as hell as he watches on from heaven with his wife. The things you've done to his son are despicable. Naruto Uzumaki did nothing to you before today. I expected you to be there for your sensei's son, but you insisted on treating him like human garbage. Now, it has come to my attention that you attempted to murder him today. All because he stole your book. If Jarius garbage is that important to you." Taking a breath to calm himself, the Hokage shook his head in disappointment before reaching into one of his drawers and pulling out his copy of the very book Kakashi had lost today. Throwing it at the Jonin, he watched as Kakashi caught it and held it almost reverently. "Now you have nothing to be pissed about. First edition autographed copy just like the one you had taken from you today. TCH trying to murder a genin over a book. How dare you? Glaring into Kakashi's eye, he said. Yugauki ordered her team to take 3 items from the sensei of Team 7, 8, and 10. From you, they were to take your book. If you wanted to be upset with anyone, you should have taken it up with her. However, because you flew into a psychotic rage, you attempted to murder Naruto for the second time in the span of a single day. I'm glad Bowsette destroyed your book. It should have served to teach you a lesson, but I get the feeling you would have simply sought revenge against the 2 of them instead of letting it go. Kakashi, I am ordering you to see Inoki Yamanaka for counseling immediately. You will visit him 3 days a week on a schedule to be set by him. Until he informs me that you're fit for duty and more important fit to lead a team, you are suspended from duty effective immediately. Turn over your headband and license and leave. I want you to go speak with Inoki after leaving my office. If he tells me that you didn't show up, you will regret it. Do you understand me, Kakashi? You are lucky I don't do worse to you. Hai exclaimed, feeling absolutely furious with the jonin. Kakashi's eye was wide in a mixture of shock and utter horror. Rather than protest, he removed his headband and placed it upon the desk. Afterwards, he fished out his ninja license and placed that down as well. Afterwards, making sure to keep his sharing eye closed, he asked, what about Sasuke-an? Once he awakens his sharing, will I still be allowed to instruct him as I was meant to? Narrowing his eyes at Kakashi, Hirozen said, no. When Kakashi went to protest, Hirozen grinned sadistically and said, Sasuke won't be awakening his sharing gunin unless I permit it. You see, Kakashi, he is being punished as well. Hearing this, the Uchiha snapped and interrupted the Hokage. Punished for what, you old bastard? I did nothing wrong. Turning his gaze onto Sasuke. At this point, Hisan said, I am the Hokage. Do try to remember that, you insufferable brat. Standing up, he walked around his desk and got in Sasuke's face. As it stands, your mental state is being called into question. At the council's insistence, I didn't force you to seek counseling after Itachi murdered your clan mates. That was a foolish mistake on my part. It has been brought to my attention by trusted sources that you only know revenge. There is no love and no compassion in your wretched heart. You care for nobody but yourself. All you desire is vengeance. I order you to see Inoki Yamanaka for therapy 3 days a week at a schedule to be set by him. Same as Kakashi. Until Inoki has deemed you fit for active duty, I am placing you in the reserves. You are lucky I don't take your headband and license as well. Seeing as Kakashi is seeing Inoki today, I expect you to see him bright and early tomorrow morning. Do not be late. Do you understand me, Uchiha? Then suddenly remembering something, he smirked sadistically and said, and just to ensure you don't do anything foolish, I'm recalling Jiraiya to seal your Kage for the time being, even though you haven't awakened it yet. Just to be on the safe side. Can't be too careful. After all, Sasuke was shaking with rage as he glared dangerously into the Hokage's eyes. Unable to take it anymore, he tried to punch him in the face only for the Ambu to appear and pin him to the floor. You senile old bastard. I'll make you pay for this. Nobody humiliates me. Nobody punishes me for nothing. I don't need counseling. I'm an Uchiha. I am not weak. How dare you do this to me? I'll kill you, you rotten old bastard. On and on, Sasuke went until one of the Ambu knocked Sasuke out. Afterwards, Hirozen ripped off Sasuke's headband and tossed it onto his desk. Lock him up. I'll instruct Inoki to visit him for his first counseling session tomorrow morning in jail. To think he was so far gone, TCH. Returning to his chair, he looked at Kakashi and quirked a brow. What are you still doing here? Leave. Go see Inoki. I have things to do that don't require your presence. Kakashi nodded slowly, clearly in shock over everything that had just happened. Without a word, he turned and left the Hokage's office. Holy, did all of that really just happen? Back in the office, Hisan removed his hat and began to massage his forehead. Good Kami, what a, storm. Sighing heavily, he reached into one of his desk drawers and pulled out his pipe. Fumbling around a bit, he soon had it ready and took a quick drag, using the drug to calm himself. Damn it, I'm going to need to call the council together and discuss all of this. That's just another headache I really don't need. Looking at Elisa and Sakura, he said, for the time being, I'm going to place Car in the reserves. As you are friends, perhaps you would prefer it if I transferred you onto Team 8 in his place, Elisa reinforced. Elisa's eyes widened and it took a moment for her brain to compute exactly what he had just said. Slowly nodding her head, she said, that's fine with me, Hokage-sama. Hinata's my best friend. I'd love to be on a team with her, but looking at Sakura at this point, she asked, what about Sakura? I don't want to just leave her alone. She deserves a fair shot as well. Hai frowned in thought for a time before looking straight into Sakura's eyes. First, Sakura Haruno, I suggest that you start studying under Drive Yuda in the hospital. He will teach you all about medicine and medical enjutsu. It is my hope that I can convince Sununit to return to the village and begin teaching new medics. But until that time, Drive Yuda is the best we have. Scratching his chin for a moment, he looked at Hinata and said, you and Sakura have not always gotten along from what I understand. However, Karani would have much to teach her. If I put Sakura on Team 8 as well, would you be willing to work with her? Looking into Sakura's eyes, Hinata frowned for a moment before sighing and nodding her head. I won't deny Sakura the opportunity to learn under Karai-sensei. Besides, it's obvious to me that Sakura is changing for the better. She's treating Naruto a lot better and even dragged him here to speak with you. I think she deserves another chance. Hirozen chuckled and said, thank you, Hinata. I will inform Karana of the changes to her team, but I believe your sensei had something she wanted to talk with you about today. Before you go moving in with Naruto, how about I summon Karana and you two can have that talk? Hinata blinked and asked, she didn't say anything earlier. Hai chuckled and said, it probably slipped her mind, what with everything that was going on. Don't worry, it shouldn't take too long. Snapping his fingers, he watched as one of his ambu appeared, nodded in understanding, and then disappeared again. Once the ambu agent was gone, Naruto let out a quiet groan and whispered to Champet, what part of behave? Didn't you understand, Chan? Stop grinding your butt against my please. Champet leaned back against him and smirked at him. Nope, it's nice to know you like me so much. Besides, it's a lot of fun. You're my precious Naru, and I'm going to take you for a ride when we're good and ready for it. Just you wait for me, my darling Naruto, blushing, Naruto leaned his head back against the chair and let out another a groan. If she keeps doing this to me, I might just lose it and take her right there, no matter where the hell we are at the time. Thankfully, her and I entered at this point and blinked as she looked around at everyone. Hello again everyone. Hokage-sama, you called for me. Hai smiled and motioned towards Hinata. Indeed, I did. I believe you have something you wanted to discuss with Hinata-chan. Please use this time to do so. I'm sure she'll be thrilled. Karani blinked in confusion for a moment before what he was implying finally dawned on her. Nodding, she walked over to Hinata and took the paper out of her inner pocket. Holding it somewhat reverently, she looked a bit nervous before she said, Hinata, I know how your land treats you, how your father, sister, and cousin all treat you. That's why I asked Hokage-sama for help. It took some doing, but we managed to convince Hiashi to agree to something. It is my dear hope that you will say yes. Turning the paper around, she handed it to Hinata for her to read. Hinata looked really confused before she began to read the paper in silence. The more she read, the more her eyes widened and she began to shake. Once she had finished, she set the paper upon her lap and looked into Karani's eyes. This isn't a prank or something, right? This is real. Kurenai and Hirozen chuckled a bit before the latter spoke up. This is no prank, Hinata. Kurenai wants to adopt you as a member of her family. She wants to take you into her home and give you somewhere to live away from the abuse you've suffered. You see, Hinata, we have been working in secret on this for some time now. It has taken quite a while, but you are finally free from Hiashi and the others. You have a new home now. Do you accept? Tears began to stream down Hinata's cheeks moments before she glamped onto Karana, hugging her tight. Nodding her head against Karana's chest, she said, of course, I accept. Looking at Na at this point, she said, thank you for the offer, Naruto, but I can't pass this up. Na chuckled before offering her a sincere smile. Don't worry about it. I'm happy for you, Hinata. Hai smiled at the scene before he said, Karani, before you go, you should know that I am removing Kar and Isuka from your team. In his place, I am transferring Elisa Rinford and Sakura Haruno to your team. I expect you to train them well. Seeing her nod, he looked at Elisa and Sakura and said, be a teammates at training ground at 7 a.m. tomorrow morning for a team meeting in your true genin test. Seeing them nod, he turned back to Karina and said, take Hanata and help her pack her things. Get her moved into your home. The four of you are dismissed. After the four of them left his office, Hirozen looked at Narut and his teammates and said, thank you for being so willing to help Hinata. Bowsette smirked and said, it was no big deal. Hinata deserves better than to be abused by a crappy parent and the rest of her family. She's a good girl, kind of fun, too indeed. Hiz said, you four should be a bit better off now that those three have been dealt with. Unfortunately, I have to go and speak with the council. You four should head on home and relax for a time. Eat some dinner and get some rest if you are able. Thank you, Hokage-sama, and good luck with the council. Try to stay strong, Narut said before he and his girls got up and went to leave the room. However, right as Narut reached out to open the door, Hissen spoke up again. Bowette, I would like to speak with you for a moment in private. Please stay, Hissen said, looking seriously at the Cooper Queen. Bowette frowned in confusion, but nodded her head, giving her boyfriend a kiss on the cheek. She said, go home without me, sweetheart. Let Booette and Champit cook dinner. You've done enough for today. Na nodded and said, see you at home, Bowsette-chan. Giving her a quick kiss on the lips, he left with Booette and Champit, making sure to hold their hands as they walked. Once they were gone, Bowsette took a seat in one of the chairs and looked into the Hoage's eyes. Okay, Hokage-sama, what's up? Hirozen sighed before taking another hit from his pipe. Afterwards, he looked seriously into the Queen's eyes and said, Bowsette, depending on how this council meeting goes, I may give you permission to take Ayami and Naruto to your home. However, it would only be temporary. You have to promise me that you will return with them. Please. Bowsette's eyes widened for a moment before she donned a serious gaze and nodded. So long as you can promise me that if things get to the point of no return and Narut is no longer safe here, you'll permit us to take him, Ayami, and whoever else wants to come with us back to the Mushroom Kingdom with us. Can you do that? The third nodded without hesitation and said, I promise. Then I promise as well. If this meeting of yours turns sour and we do need to take Narokan home with us for a time, we'll return once he's ready. Okay. Bowsette said nodded and said, I can accept that. I think I'll have a talk with Yua as well. I am sure she would like to go with you to continue training the four of you just in case. Bowsette smirked at him and said, so long as she doesn't mind a little weirdness, she's welcome to come with us. Anyways, is that all you needed, old timer? I'm feeling kind of exhausted after everything that's happened today. I really want to go home, eat a good dinner, and then cuddle with Narokan. That sounds like the perfect way to end a day. Hiz chuckled softly and said, of course. Go on home. Let them know what I told you, but also warn them not to get their hopes up just yet. Rest well, Bowette. Sure thing, Hokage-sama. Good luck with the council, she said before she stood up, turned, and left his office. Once his office was empty again, Hirozen took some time to finish smoking his pipe before he stood up and left the office. Without looking at his secretary, he said, call the councils together. Tell them we have some things to discuss. And with that, he left, making his way to the council chambers. This is going to be a giant pain in the later. Hai stared calmly at the various council members as they entered the room. As they took their positions, he glanced at Danzo, knowing the man would likely be a problem. Still, I've called you all here because we need to discuss a few things. Looking at them carefully, he decided to just get on with it. First, I would like to apologize to you, Sunam. I know you are busy right now, but this is important. Soon smiled at the Hokage and said, it's fine, Hokage-sama. You wouldn't have called us if this wasn't important. Does this have to do with the people I saw in your office earlier? Hai nodded. Yes. Sighing softly, he closed his eyes and shook his head. I have disbanded the new Team 7 and removed Ka Inuka from Team 8. Kakashi has been suspended from service and may or may not be reinstated at a later time depending on Inoiki's assessment of him. Speaking of looking at the Yamanaka clan head, he asked, "Did Kakashi approach you for his session or not?" Enonoi nodded and said, "Kakashi came to me and explained the situation. He was honest with me as far as I can tell. It's clear he has issues to work through, but it is my hope that I can correct these problems and rehabilitate him in a sense." "Good," Heen said. Afterwards, he closed his eyes again and decided to advance to the next problem. "Ignoring the issue with Ka Inuka as it is not important to this meeting, let me explain the other issue we are faced with." Opening his eyes, he pinned the people around him with a fierce glare. "I have taken Sasaki Uchiha's headband and removed him from active service. He currently resides in Kono's prison and will begin counseling sessions with Inoki beginning tomorrow morning." Looking at Inoki again, he asked, "Can you make the time to visit him and begin working with him at that time? Or would a different time be better for you?" Enonoi shook his head and said, "It's fine, Hokage-sama. I don't mind going into work that early. I assume there's a set time you would like me to visit." "Not really. Go see him at your earliest convenience," the Hokage said before he held up a hand and waited for the blow-up that was coming. They didn't have to wait long as one of the councilmen, a man by the name of Kazushi Haruno, snapped out. "What is the meaning of this? Why do such a thing to them? Hokage-sama, is it because of that rotten monster? What did he do this time?" Hai scowled at the man and said, "You'd best watch yourself, Kazushi. I can and will remove you if need be. I will not tolerate your mistreatment and ridicule of Na any longer. But if you absolutely must know, Naruto has nothing to do with my decision to deal with those three. Earlier today, Kakashi attempted to kill Naruto Uzumaki because he was trying to complete his sensei's genist. You do not need to know the details, but it certainly brought Kakashi's mental state into question. That is why he was punished so severely. If you feel you need to know about Ka Inuzuka, then you simply need to know that his attitude and way of thinking worried me. It wouldn't be a far leap in logic to assume that he would one day attempt to or even succeed in raping a woman. I will not tolerate shinobi under my command doing such a horrible thing. For the time being, until his behavior can be corrected, he has been benched." The third explained, "As for Sasaki, I made the mistake of listening to you fools and giving in to your demands regarding that little punk. He should have undergone a full psych evaluation and mental rehabilitation after the trauma he underwent. Instead, I allowed you to spoil that little son of a and fill his head with all of your nonsense. It became obvious to me that he doesn't care about anyone but himself. All he knows and understands is an obsession with his brother and the desire for vengeance. When I called his mental state into question, he tried to attack me. That is why he has been locked away and why he will remain in prison until I decide otherwise. As further punishment, I have decided to recall Jiraiya for the time being so he can seal Sasuke's Genka just in case he were to awaken it somehow during his incarceration. If he doesn't change, he will remain where he is. And don't go getting any ideas about trying to free the little bastard either. I'll find the one responsible and kill them in the streets if need be. Do you understand me?" Hai explained, then threatened. Everyone quickly nodded and shouted their agreement and understanding. However, Danzo's eye narrowed and he clenched his cane tight. "I would free him and make use of the runt, but it would seem he can't be trusted or broken. He holds no loyalty towards the Hokage or the village. It would be best to simply exterminate the vermin after taking what we need. But I cannot have Hirozen challenging me. He's serious about this. I will simply have to be patient and wait for the right time." "Damn, foolish boy." The Hokage cast a suspicious gaze at his old rival, but didn't say a word. Instead, he looked around the room before saying, "Do not speak a word of this to anyone outside of this room. I would rather not have to deal with a bunch of idiots trying something stupid." Seeing everyone nod again, he asked, "Now, does anyone have anything they'd like to add to this meeting? If not, I would very much like to return to my office and get back to work." Most of the council were content to let things lie, but a certain elder decided to bring something up, much to Hirozen's consternation. "It has come to my attention that 3 unknown women of mysterious origin have come into contact with Uzumaki. What are their intentions? Why have you placed them on a team with him? How can we trust them?" Staring blankly at Danzo, Hirozen shook his head in disappointment. Turning his gaze to the rest of the council, he saw that the majority of them were curious as well. Sighing, he decided to speak. They are queens of a faraway kingdom in the western lands beyond our reach. It would seem Manado had been in contact with them somehow and had offered them his sons, he said, stressing the word son, hand in marriage to cement an alliance between Konoha and their nations. In the Western world, they had no way of knowing that Manado had perished and no way of knowing if Naruto was even alive or dead. When they arrived, they immediately recognized Naruto for who he is, Manado Namikaze's son. They approached me about it, and we had a lengthy discussion about the whole situation. I have even allowed Naruto-kun and his brides to move into his parents' home where they would be safe. After all, how can they bring themselves to trust the people of this village when they would so readily abuse and mistreat the son of their hero? The members of the civilian council looked horrified by this revelation. Kazushi decided to speak up once again. Wait, are you telling us that Naruto is the son of the fourth? How come we were never told? We were led to believe he was the monster all this time. Hai narrowed his eyes at Kazushi and asked, and who gave you such an idea? It certainly wasn't me. On the night of Naruto's birth and the Kyuubi's attack on the village, I specifically explained that Na simply contained the Kyuubi. I explained that through use of Fu and Jutsu and a seal he had placed on Naruto, that the Kyuubi had been sealed away inside the newborn child. It was perfectly safe and there was no threat to anyone. So where exactly did you get such an idea? Do share with the rest of the council, please. Kazushi frowned before looking directly at Danzo, pointing at him. Kazushi said, Danzo is the one that informed us of what the seal actually did. Hokage-sama. Are you saying that he's been lying to us all this time? But why? Danzo's eye narrowed into a fierce glare before Hirozen looked his way. Damn it. This is not what I was expecting when I came in today. It would seem I'll have to reveal certain secrets if I want to get out of here in one piece. Why indeed? Hai said, smirking knowingly at Danzo. I think I already know the answer. You've kept Rude active all this time behind my back, haven't you? You were hoping to isolate young Na, send him to his lowest point until he became desperate for any sign that somebody might actually care for him. Also, you could swoop in at the last moment and befriend him, inviting him to come train under you and become a splendid ninja of Konoha. Only you would have robbed him of his emotions and turned him into your tool, your weapon of war. You would have used him against me to claim the mantle of Hokage for yourself. Then you would have proceeded to unleash him against the other villages in an attempt to conquer the world for yourself and cement Konoha's place as the strongest village. I'm no fool, Danzo. I sentence you to death for your crimes. Somebody please kill the bastard. Danzo scowled and went to remove the wrappings, concealing everything he was hiding. However, before he could, he suddenly froze. Glancing towards Shikaku, he thought, damn it. I'm surrounded by some of the most skilled shinobi in the village. I have no choice. Root to me now. Hai scowled as a number of root agents appeared around their master. When the other clan heads moved to attack them and end Danzo, one of the operatives unleashed a swarm of insects that Shibiarum quickly recognized. Not good, he muttered before he moved to ward them off and protect everyone. Scowling at this, Hazen watched as Root disappeared with their master. Turning to the insects, he flashed through a series of hand seals before unleashing a stream of fire from his mouth, burning all of them to a crisp. Afterwards, he slammed his fist into the table and snarled out, damn that man. Retaking his seat, he massaged his forehead for a time before letting out an aggravated sigh. I was afraid something like this would happen. I'll command the Anbu to search for Danzo and put an end to him if they can find him. I highly doubt he'll just abandon the village, but I wouldn't put it past him to seek refuge elsewhere until he can strike back against me in some way. Looking at the clan heads, he said, when you're not on missions, when you're not busy elsewhere, I want you to look for any hidden entrances into his headquarters, wherever they may be hidden. I refuse to let that man plot against us any longer. We cannot let him succeed against us. Shikaku nodded and said, of course, Hokage-sama. What are you going to do? I highly doubt Danzo is simply going to remain inactive while we search for him. The Hokage frowned deeply and said, for the time being, for their safety, I'm sending Naruto and his fiancés away to a location I know they'll be safe. I'll instruct them to return in a month. I hope that is enough time for us to deal with Danzo, or at least set up some kind of countermeasures against him. Yuga will go with them to ensure their training continues unhindered. Sighing softly, He shook his head and said, I shouldn't have to do this, but certain idiots have made the village unsafe for them. Unfortunately, Homiera frowned and asked, are you sure that is wise, Hokage-sama? Lower as I am to refer to him in such a way, Naruto is our deterrent from war. His presence here keeps us safe. With him gone, Hisan nodded and said, I did not come to this decision easily. Homiya, should they stay here, it would only be detrimental to them and Naruto-Khan's mental stability. Despite everything, and as strong as he may seem, Naruto is fragile. Before they came here and showed him the love he needed, closing his eyes, the Hokage sighed softly before saying, Naruto was planning to commit suicide, or at least attempt to. He has tried before, but he has never been successful. With everything he's been going through since their arrival, and people trying to take them away from him, it would do him some good to get out of the village for a while. Spending time with those three would do him some good. Please try to understand that, Kaharu gasped. But before she could say anything, Kazushi spoke again. We're sorry, Hokage-sama. When Naruto returns, well, try to make amends and make him feel welcome in the village. We didn't know. I'm so sorry. Hirozen shook his head and said, it's not me you should be apologizing to. When Na and his fiancés return, I expect you to apologize to him then. All of you, I want you to spread the word throughout the village that Naruto is not the monster everyone seems to think he is. Convince them, no matter what it takes to begin treating Naruto like a human being, make him feel welcome in the village when he returns. I don't want to see him hurting like this ever again. Sunam scoffed and said, Cho, to think all it took for you idiots to change your minds about him was for you to learn that he's Manito's son. Bastards. Kazushi flinched but couldn't deny what she said. Instead, he looked at the Hokage and asked, is that all, Hokage-sama? I think we would like to get started on that first. I think I'd like to have a talk with my family. I know that I convinced Sakura to mistreat him, so I think I'll start there. He chuckled softly and said, Sakura is the one that brought Naruto to see me earlier. It would seem she has a newfound respect for Na and wants to be his friend. You have nothing to worry about with her. So, first focus on your wife and then work on spreading the word to the rest of the village. Kazushi's eyes were wide for a time before he slowly nodded his head. Of course, Hokage-sama. With your permission, we'll be on our way. The third nodded and waved his hand. Go, you are dismissed. Looking to the clan heads, he said, I expect you to speak with your clans and convince them to leave Naruto-kun alone from now on. I know members of a few of your clans have attacked him in the past, while others have alienated him and treated him poorly. I won't tolerate it anymore. So, I expect you to deal with the problem. The rest of you are dismissed as well. I need to go have a word with Naruto and the others. And with that, he rose and proceeded to leave the room. I hope there aren't any unforeseen consequences to this decision. Usuzumaki Estate. The family of four were all smiles and giggles as they ate dinner together. Bowsette had yet to inform them of what the Hokage had told her earlier. They needed to eat first before she'd bring up the possibility of a little vacation to the Mushroom Kingdom. Of course, she and the other girls insisted on feeding their beloved, much to his embarrassment and the continued amusement. When they finished their meals, Bowette and Champet worked on cleaning the dishes while Bouette led Na over to the couch and sat beside him. Tentatively, she placed her hand on his thigh and gave it a gentle squeeze. It's nice to see you smiling like this, Naruto, __, if only the villagers could see your smile more, I think they might appreciate it in you for what you are. Maybe. Na smiled at her and said, that might just be wishful thinking, Bouette-chan. But thank you. Blushing, he leaned in and gave her a quick kiss on the cheek. When she blushed prettily, he chuckled softly and cupped her cheek. You really are amazing. You're so sweet and kind. Are you sure no one back home wanted to be with you? It's hard to believe. Bu blushed worse and stammered for a moment as she tried to think of how best to respond to his question. When she finally managed to calm down, Bowsette and Champet had sat down beside the two of them. Naruto-kun, you've seen how I am around you. I'm fine, but I'm not good with people. People make me nervous, especially when I don't know them or when they're whispering things about me or when they're looking at me. Hanging her head, she sulked for a time before she felt her love running his tummy along her cheek. His hand is so warm. Shaking it off, she smiled at Na and said, Naruto-kun, I never met anyone I felt comfortable with. I couldn't talk to anyone, and I was just so nervous all the time. I rarely left home. I was so afraid. You're actually the first guy I've really spent any time with. I really love spending time with you. I love you. Nobody else will ever interest me the way you do. I just want to be with you and our silly family. Naruto. Blushing. Na couldn't even formulate a response right away. Instead, Bowsette decided to speak up. She's right, Naruto. The three of us love you for who you are. You're the man we've chosen to be our husband. We're a family now. And don't forget, Ayami is included in that now. I actually have something to talk about with the three of you. It has to do with that talk I had with Hirozen earlier. Booette and the others looked at Bowsette curiously. What did he have to say? Is everything okay? Bowsette smiled at them and nodded her head. Yes. The Hokage needed to speak with the council, but he seemed to suspect something might happen. He told me that if things turned sour, he would permit us to take Naruto home for a time, so long as we return. After a while. I'm not sure how long he would permit us to leave for, but I'm excited to show Naruto around the kingdom. What about you girls? Booette smiled happily and clapped her hands together a few times. That sounds delightful. I can't wait to show him around our home. Champette grinned and shot her fist up into the air. Woohoo, it's going to be great. Then, getting an idea in her head, she began to giggle pervertedly. Hearing this, Na began to worry about what she was planning for him this time. Ooh, that's going to be fun for sure. Booette frowned and shook her head. Nothing is set in stone yet. We don't even know yet if the Hokage will permit us to go. And before we leave, we have to talk with the Ikiakis. I don't want to leave a Yame behind if we can help it. Champette pouted and said, so I might have been getting my hopes up for nothing. That's a bummer. Here I was hoping to play a little. When his shorter girlfriend began to giggle pervertedly again, Naruto's sweat dropped and hoped dearly she wasn't planning anything too dirty. She's adorable, but she's more perverted than some guys. It was at this point that they heard the chime that signaled they had a guest. Blinking, Naruto stood up and went to open the door. When he saw who was at the gate, he approached and led the Hokage and his sensei onto the premises. Afterwards, he went inside with them and retook his seat between Bu and Champette. What's up, Hokage-sama? Is everything okay? He shook his head and seemed to sag as he sat on one of the chairs. Nah, I'm sure Bowsette already informed you, but I've been considering letting you take a vacation to the Mushroom Kingdom all day. The council meeting went well until the end. Danzo Shimura, an old rival of mine, is the one who convinced the people that you are the Kyuubi incarnate. He's the reason your life has been so miserable. When I tried to deal with him permanently, he managed to escape. He is a dangerous man, and I fully expect him to try something in the coming days. Sighing heavily, he said, after everything that you've been through lately, especially since these three have come into your life, I have decided that it is time for you to take a vacation to the Mushroom Kingdom. I am only permitting you to remain there for 1 month. After which time, I want you to return and resume active duty. You will begin taking missions, and I hope to hear great things about you and what you'll get up to. It is my hope that during this month apart, I can find and deal with Danzo permanently. I have also managed to convince the council to try and put things right. Again, I hope that when you return, the people of the village will be more accepting of you and will welcome you back with open arms. I make no guarantees, but I'm sure things will start to look up for you. Looking at Bowsette at this point, he asked, Bowsette, are you sure you three can open a portal that will lead you back home? Bowsette nodded and said, of course we can. We performed a test of sorts last night after Naruto had gone to sleep. I wanted to get one of my people to spread the word that the three of us had found our chosen husband and might be gone for a time. I'm sure our people will be happy to see us. We haven't been gone for long, but it feels like it's been a lot longer than it has been. Hai nodded in understanding. Of course. Looking at Yuga, he said, Yu has agreed to go with you and begin your training in earnest. She and her boyfriend had a falling out, let's say. So, some time away will do her some good as well. As for Ayami, I expect you lot to speak with her and her father about taking her with you. Hopefully, Chuki will be all right by himself for a time. Booette frowned sadly at Yuga, but soon looked to the Hokage and nodded her head. Of course, Hokage-sama, We'll do our best to convince Tuki to let Ayami come with us. I'm sure he will understand. And Yuga-sensei. Seeing she had the purple-haired woman's attention, she offered her a sincere smile and said, I think you'll like the Mushroom Kingdom. It's a beautiful place, though. Bowser and his minions can be a little rowdy. Let's say he's Bowsette's cousin, and he can be rather naughty. It's his fault that our people can be misunderstood, let's say. Regardless, I'm sure it's a wonderful place, just like you said. I'm looking forward to spending time there with all of you, Yugao said, smiling thankfully at them. Hai frowned for a moment before shaking his head free of his negative thoughts. I'll get out of your hair for now. Go and speak to the Ikyaku family. Once you are ready, you are free to leave at any time. Remember, I expect you back in a month. Don't forget. And with that, he stood up and left their home. This way, I can determine if there's a time dilation between our worlds. If there is, I hope it isn't too extreme. Otherwise, we're going to have some problems. Once he was gone, Bowsette smiled at her family and hugged the three of them tight, giggling with them all the while. Ooh. This is going to be so much fun. Come on, let's pack what we need and then go see Ayami. Na chuckled and hugged his girlfriends tight. I'm so glad. I'm really looking forward to this, he said before four of them left to go and pack their things. Finally, some time away from this place. Better yet, it's the home of my lovely queens. This is wonderful. Later, thankfully, Bowette and the others didn't have to do much more than inform Ayam of their plans. The waitress had immediately turned on her father and practically demanded that he let her go with them. He was barely able to put forth any kind of argument against her before he crumbled under the pressure and agreed to let her go. Now, here they were on Naruto's property and preparing to leave for the Mushroom Kingdom. However, as Bowsette and the girls were preparing to open a portal that would take them home, a shadow fell over them. Blinking a couple of times, the group of 6 looked up at a figure descending from the sky. When the figure, a beautiful woman and some kind of star creature floating beside her, landed on the ground, Na couldn't help but marvel at her beauty. Wow, is she a queen like these 3? Bowette, though, looked at the woman with suspicion. Who are you and why are you interrupting us? What do you want with us? The woman smiled as she looked first at Na and then at Bowette, Booette, and finally Chet. Returning her gaze to Na, she stepped up to him and gently cupped his cheek, rubbing her thumb along his whisker marks. My name is Rosalina. I am the one who granted the wishes of you and Narrat, here. Na and the others blinked before he asked, So guys, what do you think about this Naruto story? Tell me your opinion in the comments. And if you want more Naruto What If stories, make sure to subscribe to Universe of Naruto. Thanks for watching.